Welcome back to the afternoon of closing arguments on the last day of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial. I am legal analyst Emily D. Baker. Thank you, law nerds, for being here. This morning had some moments, including alerts going off on the phones in the courtroom, and it looked like it could have been a weather alert based on the chat, but the judge said to Mr. Rottenborn, who was looking around like, what is going on? They are Amber alerts. Phones are going off even though they were turned off, and it just kept happening. It reminded me of that scene in Pitch Perfect 2 when Reveille starts playing, or Tap starts playing while they're singing. And it was just that kind of moment in court during closing argument. But it wasn't just that. There was a fast and furious type of closing argument from Elaine Bredehoff, but I thought a very connected and strong argument from Camille Vasquez and Ben Chu. When we resume after lunch, we've got a time issue here, folks. Team Depp has, that's right, 39 minutes to give their rebuttal. Team Heard has 6 minutes to give their rebuttal. I don't know what they're going to be able to get done in 6 minutes. It should be from Ben Rottenborn. I don't know what he is going to be able to do in 6 minutes because Camille Vasquez has a lot of time to work in her rebuttal. And that's what we're going to see when court resumes in just a few minutes. Yes, Fred and George are wandering around the office. They are ready to see what happens in this case too. This case is going to the jury in less than an hour from when court starts. Will they then come back this afternoon? The court said they can stay there as long as they like, but that the court doesn't serve dinner. It is going to be very interesting. We should just get into it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. If you have anyone you want to watch this with, don't forget to share the stream and do the YouTube things. Let's go. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to get to a few questions as we get into this afternoon. I am just surprised that time has been... Emily, are you really surprised? I shouldn't be surprised that time is this much of an issue, but it is. Time is this much of an issue. And this has been a problem for Team Heard literally this entire case, is they seem frantic in running out of time. And that happened in their case in chief as well. The court gave everyone over 61 hours and just didn't get to it. Court TV said Elaine was great.
All right, ready for the jury?
Were y'all watching? Oh, WAP. Sorry. I need to get my screen share together. I just sat down and started talking to y'all because I'm just blown away by what we saw. I don't think it was great. I think that was frantic, and I felt like I was being screamed at. Reasonable minds can differ, but I didn't love it. I didn't love it. We should say, just because we keep checking, we should go to a real quick, the jury hasn't come in yet. Y'all are doing a thing over here on the YouTube. Thank you. Oh, and when I say WAP, I mean, we are professionals. The law nerds know. The law nerds know. So thank you for the YouTube love and support on this channel. I love it. I love this community. I love this work. There's really only 45 minutes left.
All right, rebuttal arguments.
Camille is ready to go. Get that mic, girl. She's like, my mic's not working. Tech.
Hello?
They could have done this before the jury came in. They didn't. Lots of bottles of water on the desk and ready to go. She's got 39 minutes, y'all. If you guys want to time it,
Good
do it.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
That's not great sound.
Ms. Heard's counsel has mischaracterized the record multiple times, and Ms. Heard lied to you. They've mischaracterized the testimony of police officer Symes and Haddon, who explicitly testified that they saw no signs of injury and no property damage. They mischaracterized the testimony
Ooh.
of Walter Hamada, who testified clearly that there was no impact on Ms. Heard's career at Aquaman 2 from anything said by Adam Waldman or Johnny Depp. And Ms. Heard's casting was delayed because of creative issues. They've mischaracterized the testimony of Detective Sadaga. They mischaracterized the testimony of Ronald Shell. You've been here. You've listened to the testimony. You know the record. Ms. Heard lied, and she lied again, and she kept lying. She lied 6 years ago on May 27th, 2016, when she walked into court in Los Angeles to publicly accuse Mr. Depp of abuse for the first time. She lied again when she told the world over and over again that she donated all of the $7 million divorce settlement to charity.
Her
You heard
attorneys
the evidence
dialed down on that.
about what she donated. And you watched her. You watched her try to save her lie about that broken promise with more lies on this stand in this courtroom. She lied again when she told the world in her op-ed on December 18th, 2018, that she was a public figure representing domestic abuse, painting herself as a representative of abuse survivors everywhere, and painting Mr. Depp as a representative of perpetrators. She's come too far. She can't back down. She's lied too many times to too many people. So when Mr. Depp finally decided to fight to clear his name by filing this lawsuit, Ms. Heard responded by making up more and more stories of more and more extreme abuse. She came up with a new accusation that Mr. Depp had raped her with a bottle in Australia. And she keeps making new claims up even now. At this trial, for the very first time, she claimed that she had been sexually assaulted the night of her 30th birthday, even though she had testified repeatedly about her birthday prior and never mentioned it. And at this trial, she also claimed for the very first time that Mr. Depp was hitting her all the time during the first year of their relationship, even though this first year, she had testified previously, was magic and bliss.
And she even said that in this trial.
Her story is a constantly moving target. It never stays the same. Mr. Depp owns his mistake. He owns all of them. You saw him do it on the stand in a raw and powerful way. But in this trial, Ms. Heard has been confronted with her lies and the damage she has caused. And she cannot take any responsibility for what she has done. And you've seen the story, her story, it doesn't hold up. You've watched her performance on the stand. You saw her get caught in lie after lie. The time has come for those lies to come to an end. The time has come for you, the jury, to decide the truth. I started this trial giving you an opening statement, and I said to you that words matter. And this case is about Ms. Heard's words, the words she published in an op-ed about Mr. Depp. Ms. Heard and her attorneys have talked a lot about this in this trial about the First Amendment. They've talked about the importance of free speech, and we agree. I'm a lawyer. Of course I agree with that. But the First Amendment doesn't protect lies that hurt and defame people. And there's a difference. Ms. Heard has no right to tell the world that Mr. Depp physically or sexually assaulted her when that isn't true. That's not protected speech. Our US Constitution doesn't protect that speech. And it is a core value of American society that you are innocent until proven guilty. There is a presumption of innocence in this country. A person's life cannot and should not be destroyed by a baseless charge and no opportunity to defend yourself.
I'm surprised
That's why Mr. Depp had to bring this claim. Ms. Heard was never going to stop calling him an abuser. The only way to clear his name was to stand up in this court where both sides are bound by the same rules of American law. A jury would be tasked, you, ladies and gentlemen, would be tasked with deciding once and for all Ms. Heard's lies could be exposed in a fair and impartial process. When Mr. Depp sued her, Ms. Heard apparently decided she needed to sue him back. And because there were no statements made by Mr. Depp on which she could base a claim, she sued him based on statements made by one of
Oof.
his lawyers, Adam Waldman,
Oof.
calling Ms. Heard's accusations of abuse a hoax. Make no mistake, though, they are a hoax. Ms. Heard made up claims of abuse.
Make no
and then
mistake.
she gave a performance where she passionately repeated those made up claims of abuse on the stand in front of each of you. But ask yourselves, who is really the one alleging a hoax here? Who wants you to believe that everyone else is lying, committing perjury?
It's a good argument.
Ms. Heard needs you to believe that all the people who showed up in this courtroom to testify
Elaine
on
walked
behalf
right
of
into that
Mr.
argument,
Depp,
too.
they're all lying.
Elaine walked right
She
into
needs
that
you to
argument.
believe that the witnesses you heard from, including security professionals, former cops, medical professionals, and police officers, they're all lying, covering up for Mr. Depp. She's asking you to believe that she's the one telling the truth and that the rest of the people in Mr. Depp's life are all part of a conspiracy of silence. This case is not just about whether you believe Mr. Depp or you believe Ms. Heard. This case is about whether you believe Ms. Heard or whether you believe Mr. Depp supporting her brother. Isaac Baruch, who wept in front of the world.
He did. He wept.
Keenan Wyatt, who doesn't work for Mr. Depp. Sean Betts, a former LA Sheriff's Department.
Deputy.
Malcolm Connolly, he worked in the prisons in the UK. Starling Jenkins, a former US Marine. Travis McGivern, also another former police officer.
Member of ZZ
Ben
Top.
King, he worked for the Queen of England.
He worked for the
David
fucking
Kipper.
queen.
Dr. David Kipper. Ms. Heard's doctor.
That's my favorite part of this so
And
far.
yes, Mr. Depp's doctor. Debbie Lloyd, a nurse. Aaron Filati, Ms. Heard's personal nurse. Officer Sines, an LA police officer with training in domestic violence. Officer Haddon, her understudy, yes, in his first week, studying to pick up on these signs of domestic abuse. Officer Gatlin, Brandon Patterson, who worked at Eastern Columbia Building, Kate James, Ms. Heard's former personal assistant, Tara Roberts, Alejandro Romero. He took his deposition from his car because he had to go to work, but it didn't stop him from telling the truth.
It was very human of him
Edward
to be
White,
in his car.
Mr. Depp's business manager. Laura Wasser, one of the most famous divorce lawyers in California.
Well,
Morgan Knight,
perhaps beyond that.
Beverly Leonard, Morgan Tremaine, and Kate Moss.
And Kate Moss.
And all the other witnesses whose stories support Mr. Depp's description of what took place. These
And the
people
audio.
have nothing to gain by coming forward.
You have to disbelieve your own ears and your
You have
own
everything
eyes.
to lose. You have seen Mr. Waldman's statements and evidence in this case. When you look at them, you can tell that the key point Mr. Waldman was making in each of these statements was simply that Ms. Heard's accusations against Mr. Depp were lies. That's why he talks about an abuse hoax. Now, Ms. Heard has the burden of proof of proving that Mr. Waldman's statements are false. And that means that Ms. Heard has to do more than prove that Mr. Waldman got some details wrong. She has to prove that Mr. Waldman's statements are false in their essential meaning. In other words, she has to prove that her abuse claims are not a hoax. But as we've seen, the evidence is overwhelming that Ms. Heard's claims of abuse are false. We should also spend a bit of time talking about actual malice.
Yes.
It is Ms. Heard's burden to prove that Mr. Waldman's statements were made with actual malice.
Legal malice.
Actual malice means
not meanness.
knowledge that the statements were false or reckless, and that's an important word, reckless disregard for the truth. But here, there's clear evidence that Mr. Waldman genuinely believed that Ms. Heard had committed a hoax. You watched him give the testimony by deposition in this case. He testified about the evidence he found persuasive, the numerous witnesses and the sworn depositions of the police officers who went to the penthouses that night and again saw no injuries. There is no evidence in this record, none, that Mr. Waldman acted with actual malice. He believed Mr. Depp. He believed the record. It's also important to understand that because Mr. Waldman's statements were not made by Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard needs to prove that Mr. Waldman was acting as Mr. Depp's agent. And within the scope of that agency, within the scope of the agency of the employment, when he made the statements, Mr. Waldman is a lawyer. Ms. Heard has not presented evidence that making those statements was part of Mr. Waldman's responsibilities as Mr. Depp's lawyer. There's nothing in the record. Ms. Heard is also claiming to be suffering from PTSD and claims that she has something to do with Mr. Waldman's statements. Ms. Heard wants you to believe that she suffers from PTSD because Mr. Depp purportedly abused her. But as usual, Ms. Heard is not telling the truth. As you heard from Dr. Shannon Curry, Ms. Heard does not have PTSD, and she does not act like a person with PTSD. Ms. Heard is an actress in a major film, involved in sommelier training. She just had a baby. Dr. Curry also found that Ms. Heard attempted to grossly exaggerate her symptoms during testing, which is a sign of malingering, or said differently, of Ms. Heard lying. Ms. Heard hired Dr. Don Hughes to help her with this narrative. Dr. Hughes did not catch Ms. Heard's exaggeration during testing because Dr. Hughes used an improper malingering screen test. She wasn't going to find it.
She was trying to make fetch happen.
One that is meant to identify an examinee's attempt to fake a severe mental illness or psychosis, not PTSD. Dr. Hughes diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD without administering the gold standard diagnostic test used for PTSD. She diagnosed her, think about that. She diagnosed her with PTSD before administering the test she admitted was the gold standard.
How did she do
2 years after diagnosing Ms. Heard with PTSD, and curiously, shortly after Dr. Curry administered the gold standard diagnostic test in her evaluation of Ms. Heard, but before it was disclosed, Dr. Hughes decided to administer the gold standard. Finally, nevertheless, even after Dr. Hughes used the proper test, there were a number of deficiencies in her administration of that test. You saw them, including her failure to even follow the instructions that render her diagnoses unreliable. Ms. Heard's claim for monetary damages related to Mr. Waldman's statements, frankly, it's a fantasy. Ms. Heard speculates wildly that she has somehow been damaged by Mr. Waldman's statements. But in reality, Ms. Heard has not shown any damage at all that was because of or by Mr. Waldman's statements. There is evidence of a mountain of negative press coverage about Ms. Heard, including press reports about her defecating Mr. Depp's bed, cutting off his finger, and putting out a cigarette on his face. But none of that has anything to do with Mr. Waldman's statements.
True.
And Ms. Heard has presented no evidence, none, of any film or other project that she has lost because of the statements. In fact, you heard from Warner Brothers president, Walter Hamada, who explained that Ms. Heard suffered no loss, none. No loss of compensation or other adverse effect on her major film, Aquaman 2. You heard it straight from him. Ms. Heard's expert, Catherine Arnold, testified, but for the statements from Mr. Waldman, Ms. Heard would be much more successful in her career. To form this opinion, Ms. Arnold compares Ms. Heard to actors such as Jason Momoa, the actual Aquaman, Chris Pine, Gal Gadot, and Zendaya. But as Richard Marks, who does deals every day, that's his job, not testifying
just respect on her name.
Paycheck, does deals in Hollywood. And Doug Banya both testified that these actors are simply not comparable to Ms. Heard. After all, Jason Momoa
is
he was
Jason
Aquaman.
fucking
Chris
Momoa.
Pine, he was Captain Kirk. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. Zendaya, she's been acting since she was 13 years old on the Disney Channel. And she's in every single Spider-Man movie.
And she's MJ. She's amazing.
Further, the Q scores of these actors are not at all comparable with Ms. Heard's Q scores. As Mr. Banya testified, Ms. Heard's rating was less compared to these actors, and all of Ms. Heard's Q scores ratings were less favorable than the average of all performers.
That was great testimony.
As you heard
She
from
goes
Michael
by one
Spindler,
name.
because Ms. Arnold relies on the salaries of these comparable actors, to calculate Ms. Heard's damages, Ms. Heard's claim for damages makes no sense. There's no connection. Further, and more fatally for Ms. Heard's damages claim, is that there's no connection to the Waldman statements, to Mr. Waldman's statements. Even if you find damage to her career, you have to connect it to the defamatory statements. There is no connection. Mr. Banya testified that all the negative tweets that Ms. Heard has entered into evidence have no causal connection to the statements underlying Ms. Heard's counterclaims. Specifically, Ms. Heard's expert, Mr. Ron Schell, presented a flawed methodology that included picking out hashtags at random, including justice for Johnny Depp.
There it is.
What does that have to do with the Waldman statements? And counting accompanying tweets, even though it had nothing to do with Mr. Waldman. Ms. Heard's counterclaim is based on statements by Mr. Waldman, not Mr. Depp. Ms. Heard knows perfectly well that she hasn't suffered any damages from those statements, buried at the bottom of articles in a mere tabloid, the Daily Mail. And the statements are substantially true, since all they do really is point out that Ms. Heard's abuse allegations are false. Ms. Heard's counsel argued that Ms. Heard did not write the title of the online version of the op-ed, which stated, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change." It does not matter whether or not Ms. Heard wrote the title. You will recall from the court's instructions this morning that what matters is whether Ms. Heard republished the defamatory language. That instruction states in part that you should find Ms. Heard republished this article if she, quote, retransmitted the defamatory material with the goal of achieving a new audience. Stated differently, republication occurs when the speaker has affirmatively, that's important, affirmatively reiterated the statement. Ms. Heard affirmatively reiterated the statement. She posted it on her Twitter.
Twitter.
If we could please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 3.
It better be Twitter. I'm hoping it's Twitter. So again, this is where that time deficit is going to come in.
This is the tweet Ms. Heard sent. She retweeted the
There was
Washington
an
Post
image.
tweet
I wonder
to
if they
an
took the
audience,
image out.
her own Twitter followers. And she affirmatively reiterated the statement by proudly declaring, "Today I published this op-ed in the Washington Post." She didn't quibble with the title. She said proudly, "Today I published this op-ed in the Washington Post." The title of the op-ed was prominently displayed in the tweet. That is enough for you, members of the jury, to find that Ms. Heard republished the title of the op-ed and adopted the statement as her own. She can and should be held liable and responsible for that statement. Ms. Heard tries to make something out of the fact that Mr. Waldman reported her to law enforcement in Los Angeles for perjury after her allegations of abuse
Thank you for letting me know, Tanya.
against Mr. Depp.
We're just here.
I'll submit to you
things.
that all this proves is that Mr. Waldman believes Ms. Heard has committed perjury.
Making his statements true.
Mr. Rottenborn argued that the lack of supporting evidence for Ms. Heard's allegations of horrendous, constant abuse is somehow not something to be considered. That it is shameful for you to consider the fact that she didn't document all the terrible injuries that she claims to have suffered.
I like that she's addressing this.
That is a twisted argument. First, you know, because you have seen and listened to Ms. Heard in action, that Ms. Heard is a woman who's documenting things throughout their relationship. And it is instructive that the things she chose to document had nothing to do with violence. She documented Mr. Depp sleeping. She documented lines of cocaine, featuring prominently Mr. Depp's loan out company or production company, Infinitum. Stage photographs.
The mug came
That's
up.
what she documented.
The mug came up. The mug came up.
Mr. Rottenborn's entire argument
That's
assumes
enough.
that Mr. Depp, a man, should be disbelieved.
Nod to the mug.
Because despite the fact that Ms. Heard can't support her accusations with actual evidence. What we have put to you, the jury, is not that because Ms. Heard didn't take enough pictures or tell people about abuse that it didn't happen. What we have put to you is that given how brutal and constant the abuse Ms. Heard claims, she would have had serious injuries. That's a fact. She would have had serious injuries
That
would have been
face.
observable in the pictures we
That
looked
face.
at and by the
It's
witnesses
a
we
fair
heard from,
argument.
and would have required medical attention.
It's a fair
That's it.
argument.
Ms. Heard testifies to injuries that multiple people didn't see.
It's a
What
fair
you have in
argument.
the end is Ms. Heard's word. Do you trust it?
Ooh.
We are not here because
She
Ms.
paused
Heard
to let them think.
told the world Mr. Depp was verbally abusive.
She paused to let them come
This
up
is
with the
not
answer in
about
their head.
the words used by Mr.
Well
Depp.
done.
We are here because Ms. Heard told the world that Mr. Depp was physically and sexually abusive. That's what Ms. Heard was saying in the op-ed. On May 27th, exactly 6 years ago today, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court with a mark on her face to tell the world that her husband was abusive. She renewed that falsehood in her op-ed, describing herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. And she published the op-ed, including the title, claiming that she spoke up against sexual violence. Everyone knew who she was talking about when she used those words. She was alleging physical and sexual abuse. She was not alleging emotional or psychological abuse. She was alleging
That's
physical
fair.
and sexual abuse.
Because it doesn't diminish
Ms. Heard
the other
cannot
types
run
of
away
abuse.
from her own allegations.
It just says
now.
that's not what she
You have
meant
all heard the evidence of what she
A
alleged
very
against
good
Mr.
argument.
Depp in 2016.
without
And
diminishing
you have all
anything.
heard her incredibly dramatic, over-the-top story of physical and sexual abuse. That story was a defamatory lie. Ms. Heard tried to argue that you only need to find that Mr. Depp might have touched Ms. Heard once
I like
in
that they
order
don't
to
say
find
her
in
attorneys.
favor,
Miss
because that makes her a
Heard
victim
is
of
arguing.
abuse. But common sense should tell you that you can't pick and choose Ms. Heard's allegations. You saw her on the stand.
Bring it back.
We all did. She gave the performance of her life, telling you story after story of abuse. And not just any abuse, but extravagant, over-the-top allegations of abuse that would be truly brutal, horrific, if true. You either believe all of it or you believe none of it. Either she's telling the truth, including in her most extreme allegations, or she's lying. Either she was raped by a bottle, or she's the sort of person who would get on the stand in this courtroom
Ooh.
and lie to you and the world about being raped. And if she would lie about that, what wouldn't she lie about? You can't find that Mr. Depp hit her once. Either he hit her countless times, or you can't believe a single word that comes out of her mouth. And what is the actual meaning of Ms. Heard's op-ed? That's an important question. It's not that Mr. Depp said a nasty word to her once. It's not that Mr. Depp might have hit her once. It's that she is a representative of domestic abuse. And by extension, Mr. Depp is a representative of abuse perpetrators. Words matter. Ms. Heard has shown you a lot of text messages from Mr. Depp with some very vivid language. As I told you at the start of this trial, Mr. Depp has a unique style of writing. He uses words I don't use.
I mean, that's one way to say it.
You probably don't use either. But as you also heard during this trial, Mr. Depp writes in that way, in part because he modeled his writings on literary giants like Hunter S. Thompson. And he's got a dark sense of humor. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's who he is. And Mr. Depp owns text messages. He acknowledges that he said those things, and he said things that he shouldn't have. But using bad language and colorful humor does not mean that you are a violent abuser.
Coarse humor?
And ironically, as much as Ms. Heard is trying to use Mr. Depp's words against him, it is Ms. Heard who repeatedly admitted to violence. In her own words, you've heard the tapes. You've heard her admit to violence. Ms. Heard can try to distract you with text messages showing that Mr. Depp uses bad language and has a dark sense of humor. But none of that, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, none of that is evidence of abuse. Hitting your husband is evidence of abuse.
I mean,
Mr. Rottenborn talked about the burden of proof. Let's talk about that for a minute. Mr. Depp only has to show that it is more likely than not, that the statements in the op-ed are false, that it is more likely than not that they have a defamatory implication, that it is more likely than not that Ms. Heard designed and intended the statements to refer to Mr. Depp. And the evidence on these points is clear. Ms. Heard made these allegations 6 years ago today, May 27th, 2016. She went out of her way to make them public, tipping off TMZ.
I like that they keep talking about the timing.
When she published the op-ed, she was reminding everyone in Hollywood and the world of her abuse claims. And those claims are a lie. Consider what the true purpose of the article. Mr. Rottenborn said it was to promote legislative reforms. But what was it actually? The evidence shows it was to promote Ms. Heard. It was timed to be released at the same time as Aquaman on December 21st, 2018. And it was timed to coincide with her announcement of her ambassadorship at the ACLU for women's rights.
And her witnesses testified to that.
It was
not hers.
That way. That was not a statement about legislative reforms. This was about burnishing Ms. Heard's reputation at the expense of Mr. Depp's. It was about Ms. Heard continuing to portray herself as a heroic survivor of abuse. And on the question of actual malice, that just means whether or not Ms. Heard knew the allegations were false. Ms. Heard knows perfectly well that she wasn't abused. She has direct knowledge of that. She was in that relationship. So actual malice is easily established. You may have noticed that no one showed up for Ms. Heard in this courtroom other than her sister.
Oh, girl.
Every other witness who traveled to Virginia for her was a paid expert. This is a woman who burns bridges. Her close friends don't show up for her. Mr. Rottenborn tried to discredit Mr. Depp's witnesses by suggesting they're all on Mr. Depp's payroll.
He did?
So he doubled down on the hoax theory that everyone's just lying. First of all, it's not even true Keaton Wyatt is on his payroll. Ben King isn't on his payroll. Officer Melissa Sines isn't on his payroll. Morgan Tremaine isn't on his payroll.
If they argue that he pays taxes and therefore the
Haddon,
LAPD is on his payroll, I will laugh.
Beverly Leonard, Alejandro Romero, Brandon Patterson.
It's powerful.
Morgan Knight. None of those people are on his payroll. And Kate Moss.
Needs no one's payroll.
Moss is most definitely not on Mr. Depp's payroll.
She's also not seeking her 15 minutes of fame.
Ms. Heard wants you to believe that all these people are lying. Let's talk about the Boston plane. Ms. Heard wants you to believe that the recording you heard is from the Boston plane.
They're addressing that it's not from the flight.
That's quite telling. What did Ms. Heard capture of this supposed rampage? Mr. Depp moaning in distress? That's what she chose to record. What sort of person records something like that? What sort of person takes pictures of their husband or boyfriend or fiance who's struggling with sobriety, nodding off with ice cream dripping down his leg,
and then tells their expert it's vomit,
hand in his pocket,
and then tells their expert it's
or
vomit,
asleep on the ground? What sort of person does that? Definitely not someone that's afraid of him. And Ms. Heard's attorney told a story of May 21 that was completely, utterly inconsistent with the testimonies of Officers Sines and Haddon, who testified clearly that they saw no signs of injury, no sign of property damage. And she told a story about how Officer Sadanaga's testimony was also wrong. She testified that the report was only required in case of a crime. Ms. Heard's attorneys tried to tell you that Mr. Depp apologized on May 22nd because he had hit Ms. Heard. Mr. Depp didn't apologize to Ms. Heard on May 22nd for hitting her. He apologized because he was leaving Ms. Heard. And this was a woman that in spite of all her violence and all her rage, Mr. Depp, he loved her. He had been with her for years. Of course, he apologized when he finally broke it off. Ms. Bredehoff also tried to tell you that Ms. Heard did everything in her power to keep the authorities away and to not get Mr. Depp in trouble on May 21st, 2016.
She did
Take
say
a
that.
minute and think back to what Ms. Heard did 6 days later, 6 years ago today. She walked into court with a visible mark on her face, not wearing makeup that day. She tipped off TMZ, she made it public, and she showed up on the cover of People magazine with a mark on her face. Was that protecting Mr. Depp? Or was she trying to destroy him?
And she asked those questions in cross, and it just comes right back
Mr.
around.
Rottenborn asked
Were you
to
protecting
consider
Mr.
why
Depp
you're
then? Were you
So why
protecting
are you
Mr.
here?
Depp then?
You're here because of a lie. And that was a lie that Ms. Heard repeated in the op-ed. At the start of this
She's almost done, I
trial,
think.
we told you that this trial is about the evidence. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that Ms. Heard is an abuser and that she is a liar. She lied about Mr. Depp and took on the role of a lifetime as a public figure representing domestic abuse.
Camille's out here so confident in her argument,
is
she's
the
not
best
even wearing a
evidence
watch. She
of
doesn't
that
even need it.
abuse? A video of Mr. Depp banging cabinets around, and text messages of Mr. Depp using bad words
Mr.
and
Rottenborn
dark,
only
ugly
has
humor,
6 minutes.
but never once admitting to abuse. Pictures of Mr. Depp sleeping. That's her best evidence.
It's a strong
Ms.
argument.
Heard herself. Ms. Heard held herself out to the world as a representative of abuse survivors everywhere, the face of the Me Too movement. This is not a Me Too situation. There are no Me Toos, just not me's.
There
Ms.
are no
Heard
Me
does not
Toos,
deserve to be known as a representative
just not
of
me.
survivors of abuse. And Mr. Depp does not deserve to be known as the representative of perpetrators of abuse. That is what this case is about. It's not about money. It's about giving Mr. Depp his life back 6 years ago when she took it away. While you deliberate, ask yourselves why Mr. Depp would put himself through this.
He chose to
Expose
sue.
every embarrassing detail of his life on national television.
It's horrific text
If
messages.
he was guilty of anything that Ms. Heard accuses him of. We ask you, we implore you, to render a verdict for Mr. Depp. We ask you to set the record straight, that he is not the abuser she described, and that she is not the heroic survivor she portrayed. And we ask you to tell Ms. Heard that what she did was wrong. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Rebuttal closing?
He's only got 6 minutes. She did a great job. There is nothing else to say.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Rottenborn has been their strongest in arguing. Let's see. He's got to post it. Set your timer and go off to the races. Start the clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's interesting that in both their opening and their rebuttal closing, that you heard Mr. Depp's attorneys address none of Ms. Heard's witnesses. None of Ms. Heard's witnesses. They listed their own, who didn't see, who were on his payroll, weren't there behind closed doors with him, but they didn't address any of the witnesses. For example, Josh Drew,
They did. They said they were all lying.
Liz Mars, who were all there on May 21st, Melanie Iglesias, who covered Ms. Heard's bruises. They say that no one showed up for her. No one showed up for her, but then they say that these people aren't friends anymore. If they're not friends anymore,
Why would they show up?
then why would they be doing what they would suggest are lying for her? Why would they be corroborating everything that she says? It's this simple. If you believe that Depp was abusive to Amber one time ever in any of the various forms of abuse,
I think that misstates
not
the law.
only physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, any of the ways of abuse, then your job is very easy. And you can not only deny Mr. Depp's claim, but you can fine for Amber on her counterclaim. And it's interesting that Ms. Vasquez
headline.
just changed their theory after 6 weeks.
Really?
She said, oh, well, domestic abuse just means physical abuse.
No, she didn't say
Not
that.
what Mr. Depp said.
That's not what she
Not
said.
what Dr. Curry said.
That's not what she said.
It's not what Dr. Hughes said.
That's not what she said.
It's not what you know to be true.
She said that's what the
You know that
op-ed
the
said,
evidence that you've
Rottenborn.
seen constitutes all sorts of abuse.
You're smarter
And
than
there's a
that.
reason that they're running as fast as they can from those sorts of abuse.
Who's
because they
running?
know that he did it. Now, the suggestion that Amber's abuse allegations are a hoax is vicious and vile.
Huh.
Mr. Depp can say whatever he wants now, but he can't change the evidence that you've seen at the trial. The evidence shows that Ms. Heard did not commit abuse hoaxes, not about sexual violence, not about May 21st, 2016, and certainly not about Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman's catch-all, all-purpose statement that Ms. Heard's abuse hoax, which suggests that every one of her allegations are false, that that's coming to an end. The evidence shows she did not commit any of those hoaxes. The evidence shows that she was abused exactly how not only she, but her witnesses supporting her claims say that she was, and their witnesses even, who claim that Mr. Depp abused her. Ms. Vasquez talked about actual malice. She says because Mr. Waldman was acting as Mr. Depp's agent, you have to look at Mr. Waldman. They're standing in the shoes of one another. And as Mr. Depp's agent, Mr. Depp's malice is Mr. Waldman's malice. Mr. Depp's malice is Mr. Waldman's malice. He acted with actual malice when he made these statements. Now, after years and years of Mr. Depp controlling the roles that Ms. Heard took, Ms. Heard had the biggest hit of her career 3 months before she was sued. She had withstood Mr. Depp's attempt to have her fired from Aquaman
She timed the release
and his own
of the
jealousy
op-ed.
as his career went down the drain before her op-ed for reasons having nothing to do with Ms. Heard. But once the lawsuit against Ms. Heard was filed, his campaign that he promised to destroy her entered a new phase. And then it reached a crescendo when Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman decided to meet with the Daily Mail together and decide to plant statements that were defamatory of Ms. Heard in the spring of 2020, leading up to the UK trial. You've heard Amber and her agent, Jessica Kovacevic, talk about the impact to Amber's career. She can't get hired because of the negative treatment she gets. Studios like her, co-stars like her, she tests well, but she can't get opportunities because of the negativity associated with Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman. You heard Amber Heard on the stand yesterday telling you exactly what she has experienced as a result of Mr. Depp's promise to bring her global humiliation. That promise, to paraphrase Catherine Arnold, Ms. Heard's damages expert, that promise was a spark. And that promise he kept because he had told her again and again, the only way out of this is death. And when she chose a different path out of it, he decided to make that promise.
He made it, or he kept
decided
it?
to throw that spark. And when Mr. Waldman became involved, that spark became a forest fire. That forest fire has continued to this day. We ask, ladies and gentlemen, that you hold Mr. Depp accountable for his actions.
Sit down.
Stand up for victims of domestic abuse everywhere who suffer in silence. Stand up for the freedom of speech, the freedom to speak about your life that the First Amendment protects.
He's going back to
Give
all.
Amber Heard her voice back. Give Amber Heard her life back. Thank you so much for your service on this jury.
Thank you, Mr. Rottenborn. Members of the jury, this is an important case
Goes
to
to the
both the
jury.
plaintiff and the defendant. In order to reach a verdict, each of you must agree on that
Unanimous.
verdict. In other words, your verdict must be unanimous. The first thing you should do when you go back to the jury room is to select a presiding juror. The role of the presiding juror is to see to it that
person.
the deliberations are conducted in an orderly and businesslike manner, that they are conducted only in the jury room when all the members of the jury are present, and that each juror has the opportunity to fully and fairly express his or her views. It is rarely helpful for jurors upon first entering the jury room to take a straw vote, or for any juror to make an emphatic expression of his or her opinion in the case, or to announce a determination to stand for a certain verdict. To do so before all jurors have had an opportunity to consult with one another and exchange views and opinions might allow your sense of pride to prevent you from retreating from an announced position,
The final
even when shown that
instructions.
such position is unsound. You have a duty to consult with one another and to deliberate with the objective of reaching an agreement, if it can be done without offending your individual judgment. Each of you must decide this case for yourself, but only after an impartial consideration of the evidence with your fellow jurors. In the course of deliberation, a juror should not hesitate to re-examine his or her views and change his
Don't
or
be
her
afraid to
opinion
change
if
your
convinced
mind.
it is an error. However, none of you should surrender your honest conviction as to the weight or effect of the evidence solely because of the opinion of your fellow jurors or for the mere purpose of returning a verdict. In the jury room, you will have the exhibits that were entered into evidence.
Only the
You will also have
exhibits.
the instructions of law that I just read to you, and you will have the verdict forms. You'll also have a laptop, and that laptop will have just 2 files on it, and Deputy Lusa will set it up for you in the jury room. One is the plaintiff's files for audio and video files, and one's the defendant's files for audio and video files, and you'll be able to hear and watch those as well, the ones that were submitted into evidence. During your deliberations until you are discharged from jury service, you must not communicate with or provide any information to anyone who is not a member of this jury by any means about this case. You may not use any electronic device or media to conduct any independent research about this case, the legal or factual issues in the case, and the individuals or attorneys involved in the case. You are not permitted to consult dictionaries or reference materials, search the internet, visit websites or blogs, or use any other tools to obtain information about this case or to help you decide the case. Do not try to find out information from any source outside of the testimony and the exhibits received as evidence during the trial. You will also have, I know the attorneys discussed briefly about the verdict forms. You'll have 2 sets of verdict forms, one for Mr. Depp's case and one for Ms. Heard's case, okay? Now, when you have these verdict forms, the first 3 pages of both verdict forms have each of the statements separately. Okay, so when you're going through it, you're going to look at each statement separately and answer the questions that are on the page, okay? Now, if you decide yes for every question for a statement, then that's when you go to the last page of the verdict form, which is for damages. So for example, if you find yes for all of statement 1, then you could go to 4 and 5 for damages. If you find yes for all of statement 1 and statement 2, you still go to 4 and 5 for damages. If you say yes for statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3, you obviously go to 4 and 5 for damages. If you answer no on any of the pages for any of the statements, you don't go to 4 and 5. Okay, so that will be for all of them. And then when you do come to a verdict, make sure the foreperson signs it and dates it, and then just let the deputy know about that. Okay. All right. Now, for the tough part.
Yep.
You may remember at
alternates.
the beginning of this case.
Oh, I got to yeet 2 of you.
I told you we would randomly select
It would
4 people
suck
to be the alternates.
so much.
We still have 2 alternates left.
It would suck so
And
much.
the numbers were placed in the envelope in the very beginning of the case. So let me just say
Really?
before I release the alternates that I know that this trial has been a huge sacrifice
numbers?
for all of you. And I have taken,
my
and
God.
you've taken away from your life for weeks on end here. And I know I
6
speak for
weeks.
all of us associated with the case,
6
and I want to
weeks
thank you for your
here
service in this
and
matter.
not be able to
I know how hard it
deliberate
is to come this far and
would
then not get a chance to deliberate,
suck.
but that does not lessen the respect and admiration that we have for you. As an alternate, you will not deliberate, but you are still under order of this
Yes,
court
to not
to do any
discuss.
outside research in this case or to talk to anyone about this case at this time. And you're still under your oath as a juror. That is because if something happens to a juror during
Deliberating.
deliberations, I will call you back for service and you will join the deliberations and they'll start again and you'll be part of the
You're
jury.
not done yet.
So you are under these restrictions and your oath until a verdict is reached. We will contact you once this has occurred and then you'll be free from your obligations, okay? But again, thank you for your service, all right? So in this matter, the alternate jurors are juror number 3 and 14, all right? At this time,
I don't know where they're sitting. We'll
those
have to
jurors
wait
are
for
excused and
Runkle.
also the remaining jurors can retire now to the jury room to begin their deliberations, okay? So thank you all, okay?
That would suck, but at least they tell us how they came about it. And those jurors will not get to deliberate. And they cannot discuss this case with anyone. They sat there for 6 weeks and they still can't have a conversation about it. And that would suck. Yes, F in the chat for the alternates. It would just be so frustrating. Hopefully, once the attorneys are done, we will get from Runkle, because they said jurors 3 and 14. But where the why did this freeze? Why did this freeze? Why are you frozen? No. Do not cut the court feed. All right, let me go see if I can find a backup feed real quick, because that feed is still.
So it'll always be at the top of the hour. So for example, if I get the verdict at 10:20 in the morning, it wouldn't be read until noon. So it's always going to be at the top of the hour, at least 60 minutes later, if that makes sense. That gives you time.
Okay.
I would ask that at least one attorney is close enough within a 10-minute range for any questions. I'd appreciate that. Okay. And I know some of the attorneys are going to be leaving, so I just wanted to thank all of you for your professionalism and your hard work during this case. It's much easier being a judge when you have excellent trial attorneys in front of you. It does make it easier. And I also want to thank the attorneys and litigants for the kindness and the great demeanor you've shown to my staff and to the courthouse staff and to the deputies in the sheriff's department. I really appreciate it. It means a great deal to me. Okay. And I also appreciate Judy, because she's a rock star. Okay.
Judy is a rock star. The court,
Yes.
the stenographer.
Well, that's a first. Okay.
Your mic, Elaine. Elaine. Your mic, Elaine.
That is one thing on which Ms. Peterhoff and we respectfully agree. Completely agree.
He couldn't even
Completely
say agree.
Well, good. I'm glad on the last day we finally have an agreement.
Thank you, Ronnie. We're very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, you want to approach? Sure.
That's a nice moment of kind of levity at the end as we begin Verdict Watch 2022. But I think it's just to do those last minute wrap ups. This feed keeps stuttering. No. Let's see if we can get another feed up. No, don't do that. All right, they cut that feed. So we're going to go find another one real quick, chat, and then I will be right back with full attention, because I want to see what's happening in the courtroom. We're on Verdict Watch. You can't just cut out of the courtroom. What are you doing? There we go. All right. There's still no audio in the courtroom, though, and that doesn't that's not surprising to me, but I still want to watch what happens. So I will pull up another feed. I'm going to answer questions. Gosh, they are done with 6 weeks of trial. I'm not surprised that we saw a moment with the attorneys thanking the judge, thanking the court staff. This has been a very, very long trial. This court staff will have worked very hard. The judicial assistants will have worked very hard. This judge was tremendously patient. I am not surprised that there are people lining up who want to see possibly the attorneys. And then we're going to have everyone exit the court. The court indicated that some of the attorneys will be leaving, meaning leaving the state and getting back to work. I wonder who is going to stay for the questions and for the verdict. It'll be interesting to see. We have indication that the court has said that the parties, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, do not need to be present for the verdict. And I imagine that they will not be present for the verdict. And it looks like we've got the entire legal team. Like, this is all legal team back here on Team Depp. That is a lot of people. And I am not surprised. This team has worked well. They have worked hard. It is a 6-week trial. And you're seeing the audience all waving at Johnny Depp. He seems to wave to them every single day. And we're not seeing that. We're not getting to see all of Amber Heard's legal team. Hopefully they'll zoom back over there. But lots of attorneys in the courtroom today for closing, because closing's the fucking best. Closing is the best. Damn it. Closing is the best. Do not make me go to the channel that shall not be named. Though I might have to. All right, let's just take a look and see if anyone else is still live out of this court. Nope. All of the court feeds. And just like that, they're like, yeet. So we will absolutely ask Runkle. That is the end. We are on Verdict Watch. So I'm just going to say real quick, if you want to know when I am going live, don't just subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. I encourage you to do that. If you're in North America, text Emily.com. If you are not in North America, for all of our international law nerds, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I will be updating links when they go live. I'm going to stay alive. Yes. hopefully I'm going to stay live for a little bit longer this afternoon. And what the court told us is that when there is notice of a verdict is going to go to the media. Notice of the verdict is going to go out, and then it will be read on the following hour. So there's at least an hour. So she said, for example, if it comes in at like 10:20, we have a verdict, it will not be read till noon, so that the parties will have a full hour to get to the court for a verdict. So there will be time, and I will be letting you know we have a verdict. So you can join the text crew. You can follow me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. I'm going to answer questions. I'm going to see if we can get Runkle out of court here and see which jurors got excused. I need to send him a new link because I didn't. And then we will chat for a little bit, answer some questions, and then I don't know if they're going to come back with a verdict. Let's see. It's 3:00 on the East. They get to deliberate until they're done. If they are close, they might want to come back with a verdict today. If not, there are no deliberations Friday or Saturday and Sunday. And Monday is a holiday here in the US. So if they do not reach a verdict today, then they will not resume deliberations until Tuesday. And they will resume deliberations by 9:00 in the morning. They can resume sooner. So if you want to stay in the loop, text Emily.com just from your cell phone, and it will get you right into the text crew. I know a lot of you have been enjoying the new merch that we put up. Thank you so much. I'm going to get to questions in just a second, but we did put some new stuff up for you, including our objection hearsay. We've got a few variations of objection hearsay and the very popular this morning grumpy mug. I love this mug so much. I love it so much. I just do. I love it. I can't wait to get mine. These are up so fast that I don't even have mine yet. So those are up on lawnerdsshop.com. The one last place to find me before we get to questions is at lawnerds.unite.com, which is where our community lives. And that is where I'm going to be communicating with you as well. So if you are in the members, either a member here on YouTube or over on Patreon at Law Nerds Unite, you can join me there. I'm going to be doing kind of a summary of all the things on our members only podcast, I Have Thoughts, which is the name of my members only podcast because I have thoughts. So with that, let's get to all of your questions. What are the possible outcomes from here? I should swoop. We haven't done a swoop in a fucking minute. I have thoughts. You have questions. What are the outcomes from here? The jury can deliberate. If the jury wants to listen to all that audio, they're not coming back today. If the jury's fucking done, it's possible. So we will see. The jury could find no one is liable. No one defamed no one. No one defamed anyone. No defamation at all. Everyone loses. The jury can find that one side wins. I do not see a path to both sides winning on defamation. If you believe that Amber Heard didn't defame Johnny Depp, then you can get to them calling her a hoaxer is in fact defamatory. If you think that she didn't defame Johnny Depp, then, or if you think she did defame Johnny Depp, then calling her a hoaxer or a liar is not necessarily going to be defamation in your eyes. I don't think both can win. I think both can lose. This jury can hang. If there is a person or two on the jury, because it has to be unanimous, 7 are deliberating, it has to be unanimous. If there are a few, 1, 2, whatever, on the jury that believe vehemently one side or the other, if you believe, think about how you're feeling right now. Do you believe one side or the other strongly? If at the end of that closing, you believe one side or the other strongly, how do you come about to the other side? Because
on jury instructions, okay?
Oh, they are replaying. Let's see. This is not still live. Bummer. So if we see any other live feeds, we will hop on them. I see a couple of you sharing those, but
Police tape.
I am not seeing that. So I will go look around the interwebs. But if you believe one side really strongly, could a juror saying you have to find that they defame the other person sway you? Because if you believe that Amber Heard lied about Johnny Depp, are you ever going to say, no, Amber Heard didn't defame Johnny Depp? And if you believe that Johnny Depp perpetrated horrific abuse on Amber Heard, are you ever going to say, no, she defamed Johnny Depp? And that's where you end up with a potential for a hung jury. The potential for the hung jury is that, if you believe one side strongly, nothing is going to sway you. And that is where that potentiality lives. So, what do I think will happen? I think if we see a win for Johnny Depp, what we will see is the retweet. I think on the law, that is his clearest path to victory. Absolutely. So I think on the law, that is the clearest path to victory. So let us get to the questions. Go ahead and put question marks in it, and we will see. So this jury, if they take their time, and they are entitled to, after 6 weeks, they are absolutely entitled to take some time. I've said from the beginning, it could be 3 to 6 days. This jury was given an out by Ben Chu when he said, we're here to clear his name, not for damages. They were given a path. They were given a path to a speed pass. I don't know if they'll get there. And I don't know if they will exercise that option. I don't know if they want the fast pass. What I will say is, in my own personal life, I have a plane flight scheduled for Thursday. So if I had to put money on when this jury would come back, I would put money on Thursday or Friday based on the nonsense and fuckery that pops off every time I hop onto a plane. Because every time, since this channel has grown since 2020, and since I've started covering these cases, verdicts have come down while I'm on a plane. Once we have had wild motions leaked by James Spears while I was on a plane. The things that happen when I hop onto a plane. So if this jury doesn't come back today, I'm thinking Thursday or Friday, because of course it is. It looks like there is one feed that is still showing the courtroom. I don't know if people are waiting for something to happen. No, this must be from earlier. Yeah, earlier testimony. I was going to say this must be from earlier. Isn't it nice to have a whole news organization so you can like loop stuff? We're just... we're a smaller team, but we're mighty. We're fighting back. And we've had more live concurrent viewers. Fighting back. Let's get to questions. I swooped. They never mentioned sanctions. Sure didn't. There was no jury instruction on the evidence. There was no limiting instruction on discovery violations. And I want to know what happens. I want to know. I don't know if we will ever know. I just don't know if we will ever know how that ruling went. Maybe it'll get put onto the court website. Maybe there will be a memorialization of a ruling. I want to know so much, and I hate that I don't. Thank you for making this bearable. Effie Wild, you're welcome. I thought this trial was immensely interesting. Sad at points, wild at points, hard to understand at points, exhausting at points. It was just really interesting. Why can't the jury use a dictionary? Because the dictionary definition and the legal definition of things are different. The dictionary definition of malice and the legal definition of malice is different. So that's why. So they need to go by what the jury instructions said and their common sense. Did they say if the verdict was going to be read on stream? They did not, but I can't imagine that it won't be. I just can't imagine that it won't be. So, but they did not clarify that. So can you explain why 2 jurors are alternates and what's the purpose of that? Love you. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, I can. So especially in a 6-week trial, but in any length of trial, shit can happen. We saw it in the Cardi B, Tasha K case that one of the jurors had a exposure to the panini. One of the jurors was talking to another juror about evidence, like actual evidence, and got kicked off the jury. He got yeeted immediately. So things happen, but you have to have the set number, whatever the set number is in that jurisdiction. You have to have that number of jurors. And if you lose jurors, so if your set number is 7 and you lose a juror and you only have 6, it's a mistrial and you have to start over again at the beginning because you don't have enough jurors to decide the case. So things happen. People get sick. People get into car accidents. People are exposed to the trial elsewhere in media. People have life that happens. And the longer the trial, the more likely it is that life happens and an alternate has to come in. Additionally, if the jurors are in the middle of deliberation and one of them can't continue deliberating, then you have to tap in an alternate. And that's really interesting too. So that's why they have alternates, because you never know. And the longer the case is predicted for, the more alternates they might have. So Thank you for making the insane sane. This trial has been wild. Like, it's been wild. We've had sass, like the amount of sass, and I don't know if that is because this is a celebrity trial. I don't know if that's because there's cameras in the courtroom. I don't know if that courtroom had no cameras in it, would the sass still happen? Like, if a tree falls in the woods, would we still have the sass for Morgan Tremaine? I don't know. I've seen clapbacks on the stand. Like, I've seen some clapbacks that have had me at counsel table like this, because when you have a reaction in court, or especially when you're at counsel table, I have been like, oh, that's happening. But the amount of moments in this trial have been wild, just wild, just wild. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What's your verdict? I'm not a deliberating juror. I also have information about this case from the internet that has come out that is not in evidence. But if Johnny Depp wins, I think it's on the tweet. At the beginning of this case, I didn't see how there was a path to victory. The law and the law and the op-ed were not working for me well. And I was like, this is going to be very, very hard, because the law and the op-ed weren't mathing. After seeing 6 weeks of this trial, I understand why they chose to take this to trial. And I see that Johnny Depp has a potential to win. And that is a huge win, I think, for them, because that wasn't where I was at the beginning of this case. So that. So my verdict is, if there's a win, it's that. I still think this jury could go with nobody wins. I still think this jury could hang. I never put that aside. I also don't like betting on verdicts. I didn't like doing that with my own verdicts. When you start getting questions, if we start getting questions out from the jury, I will read the tea leaves on the questions all day long. You never know what it means. Though I was in a homicide trial and the jury said, when we render a verdict, can we be escorted out by the sheriffs? So that question gave me a pretty solid indication of what they were worried about. So sometimes. JC, great question. Will sidebars be included in the court transcript? Yes, in the appellate transcript, if there is an appeal. No, in any readback that the jury gets. So yes, for its purpose. Hello from Abu Dhabi, somewhere I very much want to go. Thank you for covering this trial. It was super helpful. You're welcome. Question, why wasn't Kate Moss cross-examined? Kate Moss, no cross, because they wanted us to be able to have the meme of Kate Moss, no cross. No, I think it was for time. There was nothing to get from it. There was nothing to gain from it. It was limited and they were down on time. So I think that was a strategic time decision. Absolutely. There was nothing to get there. If Amber pleads not guilty, do you think there will be an uproar on social media? Brooklyn, great question. That's not an option. There is no pleading here. There is only, this has gone to jury. This is a civil case. It either settles or it goes to the jury. This case has not settled. It is going to the jury. So there is no guilty, not guilty. This is a civil case. So just for a reminder, in a civil case, it is liable or not liable. We are looking for liability. Who is responsible? Who is liable for defaming the other, if anyone? Let's go over this verdict form real quick, and then I'll see if there's one up on the court site too. Let's go up on the verdict form. Let's look at the verdict form real quick. I posted it on the Twitter at the Emily D. Baker on the Twitter. This is a little blurry because the screenshot from court was blurry. We'll have a cleaner one once they're up on the court website. This is what they have to answer. Answer yes or no. If you answer question 3A, no, please proceed to question 4. 3A, do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Yes or no? If you answered yes, please answer yes or no to the following questions. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, the more likely than not, the statement was made or published by Heard? The statement was about Depp. The statement was false. The statement has a defamatory implication about Depp. The defamatory implication was designed and intended by Heard. Due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication. Defamation by implication. to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp? If you answered yes to each subpart of the question 3A, answer the following question. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? So they have to answer yes to this and yes to that to come back with a verdict. And that would mean liable. So that would be, was defamation committed? Was it proven that defamation was committed? And that's what the jury has to decide. So let us, I gotta make this bigger so I can read. Do you think Amber Heard is gauging the jury? I don't know if she's gauging the jury. I feel like she's staring down the jury. Maybe it's trying to gauge them. Maybe it's trying to like hold them to you. I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know if it's looking for approval. I don't know. She was definitely looking at them. Question, would you take your client's Post-it? You are your client's sword and shield. You are their gladiator. So yes, if your client has something they feel needs to be said for them and for their case, you take it and you weave it in. Absolutely. Unless it is something that absolutely can't be ethically said. No, you weave in what your client wants you to say. Absolutely. Because again, you are their zealous advocate and that is your job. Can Amber and Johnny now look at media and social media? They always could. They always could look at media. There was no sequestration rule as to them because they're the parties in the case. I don't imagine that they wanted to look at what was going on. I think that they did. It's clear that somebody looked at what was going on with the Milani palette and things like that. They weren't sequestered from media because they're also sitting there as the parties hearing every other witness testify. Their testimony is not going to be swayed by what's going on or shouldn't be by what's going on social media. They aren't going, there's no worry that they're going to hear the testimony of another witness. They're sitting in court every day. They've already heard it. So they've always been able to be on media and social media if they want to. I don't know if they want to. So would you want to be on social media right now if you're them? I wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be. Why they showed some metadata in closing, that happened yesterday. They revealed metadata from certain things yesterday during the end of evidence, and it was very, very interesting. But the big reveal is that I just hit myself in the glasses. The big reveal, let's try that again, was that we're professionals here, was that the two photos that looked like they were in different light are the same photo. It's like the Pam meme. It's like, it's the corporate would like you to look at these two photos. It's the same photo. It's that meme. I wonder if I posted the demonstrative up when they put them side by side. I don't think I did because they were overlaying those in videos. They're the same ones Runkle put in his video, but that's why, those will be in evidence, so I can grab those off the court website later. But those two photos will be in evidence. Can there be an appeal based on Heard's lawyer's arguable incompetence? I don't think it's grounds for appeal. I don't think there's ineffective assistance of counsel here. That applies in criminal cases anyway. Here you get to choose your lawyer, you hire your lawyer, you pay for your lawyer. If you don't like your lawyer, you fire your lawyer. It's not like criminal where your attorney's appointed for you and you are sometimes worried about ineffective assistance of counsel. Do you have negligent misstatement in the US? I have no idea what negligent misstatement is. We have defamation. I mean, defamation doesn't always need actual malice. I can kind of parse it this way and guess at what you're asking because it's the actual malice standard is for celebrities and public figures. For private individuals, you don't have to prove actual malice because part of the public figures is, look, you are allowed to talk about public figures and politicians. You're allowed to say things. You're allowed to be critical. People can be dicks. I mean, not up on this channel. We have a don't be a dick policy up in here because why wouldn't you? But we have a don't be a dick policy. And the internet does not have a don't be a dick policy. The media doesn't have a don't be a dick policy. There's a lot that you can say that is harmful, that's protected by First Amendment speech. And that is the foundation of the First Amendment. So in protecting the rights between free speech and defamation, malice is one of those standards so that, you don't have every politician in the world being like, they're defaming me. It's like, no, they're questioning you. And that coming out with celebrities and stuff like that is also where that falls. So that's why there's that. it's a brief restatement of why there's that actual malice statement when it comes to public figures, because you're allowed to give public commentary. I talk about this more in the context of like Ethan Klein and Ryan Kavanaugh, because where are the boundaries between being able to talk about publicly available information or suing someone for defamation for restating what was in an article? Where are the lines of republication? Is it republication to talk about an article? In that case, I don't think so. It's very different than Amber Heard saying, I wrote this. Read it. Did the judge announce how long she would let deliberations go today? No. I was a felony clerk for a while and the judge kept us until 1 a.m. What? Destiny. 1 a.m.? Yikes. So in Los Angeles County, the court reporters union was very, very strong. So there were not worries about hours like that. Also in criminal cases, when the defendant had to be present for a verdict, there was a whole bunch of bussing that went on with the sheriff's department. So the rules of timing were simple and finite. Court is done at 4:30, maybe 5 on the latest. Here, the judge said that they could deliberate as long as they like, but that the court does not serve dinner and they get to determine what they want to do. So it's up to them. But she did not give a cutoff. I'm sure she hopes that maybe if they get into it and are like, we need to listen to all the audio, I imagine they would work till 5:36 and then say, we're done for the day. We'll be back on Tuesday. If we hear nothing by about, 4:30, then I don't think we're going to see a verdict or anything today. So that's where we're at. But no, she didn't. 1 a.m. It was like, we're getting this verdict. I mean, if you want to talk about persuading a jury to come to a verdict, it's like, no one is leaving until you've sorted this out. It's like putting your kids in like an argument shirt, which I've never done with my kids, but it's like, you all are staying together until you sort this out. Just figure it out. Get along. All right, let's see. I'm going to go to Twitter real quick because we have more information on the jury coming from Chanley Painter over at Court TV. Jury confirmed the Depp Heard deliberating jury includes 5 men, 2 women. Alternates are juror number 2, officially number 3, and juror number 8, officially number 14. On the graph below, still on standby if needed. So juror number 9 is still there. And then these 2 jurors were dismissed. So that is what Court TV is seeing as the makeup of this jury. So they are saying juror number 1, Asian man, 20s to 30s. Juror number 2, Asian man, 20s. Juror number 3, Asian man, 20s to 30s. This juror is dismissed. Juror number 4 is a Black woman, 40s. Juror number 5 is an Asian woman, 20s. I appreciate that there are at least some women on the jury who can talk about Bruce Kit. Juror number 9, Asian man in their 40s. Juror number 8, white man in their 50s. Juror number 7, white man in their 20s to 30s. Juror number 6, white man in their 60s. I've seen this more and more that they break down the racial makeup of jurors. So we will see what happens. But I think that it's, so that's 3 women. Did it say 3 women? This says 5 men, 2 women, but this says 3 women that these 2 were dismissed. So I've got questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, okay. Who were dismissed? Juror number 2, officially number 3. What? Okay, which one's number 2 and which one? I'm so confused by this tweet right now. All right. So dismissed must have been juror number 8, the woman in her 50s, and juror number 2, the man in his 20s. Okay. So this one was dismissed, and then this one was dismissed. So you have juror number 9. If juror number 9 ends up the 4-person, it's not going to be very good for her. Juror number 9 is 1, 3, and 8 gone in that picture. Thank you. It was like juror number 2, officially number 3. What? Oh, so not the one in his 20s, the one in his 20s to 30s. This one, juror number 3, and juror number 8, officially number 14. This one. So these 2 right here. Sometimes it's harder. So hopefully they will have another chart. So we will come back when they do. I'm going to keep going to questions. So I thought they dismissed juror number 3. Here's where I'm confused on this tweet. It says juror number 2, officially number 3. So when they mean juror number 2, do they mean this one? Or do they mean this one? Runkle says 2 and 8 are gone. Yes, but it's the juror number 2 officially. So maybe I was right the first time. 2 and 8, not 3. All right. So juror number 2, the person sitting in box number 2, their official juror number is 3. sitting in box 2. They've been dismissed. And then juror number 8, officially juror number 14. That's much clearer. This one is gone. So the reason the judge said 3 and 14, here's the confusion. This is where the confusion is. On the chart, they've been giving numbers by seating arrangement, but their official juror identification number is different. Their official juror identification number will be juror number 1 through however many jurors they called. So if they called 50 jurors, it'll be juror number 1 through juror number 50. So that's where the confusion is. So on the chart, it's jurors number 2 and 8 that are gone, which means juror number 14 was sitting in seat 8 and juror number 3 was sitting in seat 2. And those are the ones that got yeeted. But that's why it took my brain a minute to process. I am tired. So there we go. That is what it is. That's why the difference is there. Why are some jurors dismissed? They are alternates. Only 7 jurors deliberate, 5 men and 2 women. So there we go. And I see you guys saying I'm sad because jurors 2 and 8 were pro Johnny. We don't ever really know. It's an assumption. It was assumed that they were, but you just don't know. I'm glad that I'm glad that they didn't get rid of 2 women and have 1 woman on the jury, who would then be standing on her own saying, look, folks, this is my experience. So I'm glad. I'm glad for the split. I think juror number 9, from everything we've seen coming out of court, might end up being the 4-person, which we won't know unless the jury asks a question. But I will be paying attention to the social medias in case there is news. And I expect all of you will at me on all of the social medias if you see anything. Do I need to send you a message first to be included in the text group? You just need to go to Text Emily and you can send a wave emoji. But no, once you signed up, you shouldn't need to send a message, but you can. You can. Sarah, can we please take a moment to recap the cast of characters in this case? Jack Sparrow, Queen Camille, Elaine the Paint, Jack Nicholson, Doc Brown, Dr. Strange, aka Spiegel. No, Dr. Spiegel is Dr. Doofenshmirtz. I'm recasting because I love Dr. Strange. The Muffin Man, Kate Moss, Classy Curry, and the lawyers. It's been a lot. Between TMZ and the amazing guy, Mr. Knight from the Hicksville Trailer Palace, from Alejandro, who was like, honestly, this is causing me a lot of stress, like hard relate, to, Isaac Baruch, who was like, I'm heartbroken by what she did. I'm heartbroken by the pain these lies have caused. It's been a lot. This case has been a lot. Why don't Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have to be present for the verdict? They asked the court for permission and the court said yes. Do you prefer sequestered juries? I've never had a sequestered jury. I worry that it could rush their verdict, but I also, social media, when I stopped practicing in 2017, in trial work, just to be clear, because somebody on the internet's going to be like, see, no, when I stopped doing trial work in 2017, social media wasn't what it is today in 2022. So I don't know how I would feel about it now. Social media is a big factor in these cases like this. Not in everyday cases as much, I don't think. So do I prefer? That's never been my experience. I've never had a sequestered jury, but I've never had some of the considerations that are considerations now. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if there's much that can be done. People have their cell phones in their pocket. I don't know if I want to make Elaine merch. I feel like we can just leave it as a thing on this channel. We might need a sound bite when somebody does something. Elaine might be the new Triller. Like, we have lawyers acting Trillery. We might have lawyers being Elaine. What would you think if the jury comes back in an hour that they're done? I would think that they are done. And that could be good or bad. It could be you all lose, or it could be Depp wins. There's no way Heard wins on that counterclaim in an hour. I don't think Heard wins on the counterclaim, period, at all. I just don't see that. I'd be very, very surprised. What would you think if the jury comes back? So I did that one. What do you mean by make fetch happen? It's not a dumb question, but I'm new here. Also, you're amazing, and I'm so glad I found you. You had me at the Mallrats quote last week. Oh yes, I caught it. I did make a Mallrats quote last week. I love Mallrats. Make fetch happen is also a movie quote from Mean Girls. One of the plastics, played by Lacey Chabert, whose name I always feel like I pronounce wrong, is being throughout the movie is like, oh my God, so fetch. And she is trying to get a new word to catch on around her high school. And every now and then she sprinkles in so fetch. And Regina George turns around and says, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. And so trying to make fetch happen is trying to create something that isn't there. You're trying to make fetch happen. And I am not ever going to stop using that phrase, because when you're trying to create something out of thin air, like a new trend, it's kind of the same. So I also say yeeted because it still annoys my 14-year-old. Did they ever say if Amber believed what she was saying? It was never addressed. They called her a liar a whole lot. The thing that's interesting is when they talked about Amber Heard assaulting Johnny Depp in her cross-examination, her answer was, I could never hurt Johnny. Not I never hit Johnny, not I didn't assault Johnny. When she was asked directly, it was like, I could never hurt him. Like I hit him, but I don't hurt him. I don't consider that I could hurt him or harm him. It was interesting. There's been some interesting moments in testimony. In this case is all been on the internet. So it's going to be replayed and replayed and replayed and broken down. Did you see Dan voice over Dr. Spiegel's testimony as Dr. I did not. I love Dan. I cannot well pronounce Povenmire. He was the voice of Dr. Doofenshmirtz. I absolutely love Phineas and Ferb. And every time that doc was talking, in my head, I just heard, Perry the Platypus. So I will go look on TikTok. I follow him on TikTok. I have not seen it yet. My amount of engagement on social media has been very limited because when I am done streaming, I have had other worky things to stay on top of and family things. So I do this, and then I am tweeting a little bit, responding to a few DMs, and then I have to keep moving because there has been a lot going on. So let's keep going. Appreciate you for following the trial up until now. I came at week 2 and followed ever since. Thank you. Never had much interest in the law community on YouTube, but you've turned me into a huge law nerd. Tokyo King, thank you. We are law nerds here. The channel started calling themselves law nerds as the channel started to grow, covering the Kanye West versus the music industry stuff, and then Toddy Westbrook stuff. We started, getting into it. Somebody just asked, why does it say rebuttal and not closing? Because closing arguments happened earlier today before lunch. And after lunch, we got into the rebuttal and surrebuttal arguments. So Depp closed, Amber Heard closed, Depp rebuttal, which means they get to rebut what Amber Heard said, and then Heard surrebuttal, which actually I thought was Rottenborn's best arguing. So that's why it says that. Do we know why cops went running into the court? I have no idea what that's regarding. So no, I don't. Could the jury come back with a verdict and have everyone come back to the court, even though everyone maybe settled it? Yeah. If there's a verdict, everybody comes back to court. Something happened at court. I don't have a feed. Let me go take a look. I hope nothing happened in court. So you guys are like, something is going down. All right, let me see if I can find a feed, and I'll have the mods look for a feed too. So if you guys are watching on a particular channel, let us know, because I will go look. Let me go over to, let's see if there's anything on those who shall not be named first. Let's see. Nope. I'm just looking for a court feed. We're holding out for a hero. Let's see. Who is live? Yeah, I don't see anything. And again, I am not getting news feeds because I am talking to y'all. Let's see. Nope. And all the feeds I'm seeing are playing back old testimony. So if we get one, then I will pull it up, but I don't see a live at all unless there's tweets. If there's tweets, let me know. So I don't know if there's a disturbance at the courthouse, but Runkle is at the courthouse. So if he's tweeting, let's see. That might be the only way we're going to get news out of the court. And I haven't seen anything yet. So we'll just keep going. And if we see anything, the mods are also monitoring the chat to let me know. So I don't see any lives that have it. So you guys, I appreciate it, but we will see. And if the news comes out, I'm sure it will be either on Court TV's Twitter, Chanley Pater's Twitter, or RunkleOfTheBailey's Twitter, or he will tell us later. So I'm not seeing anything there yet. Do you think the jury will have the mentality of a lie for one is a lie for all? Or do you think the Depp team is going to suffer from the one instance example presented in closing? I think they didn't have much room to argue anything else, because if the jury believes one, then you can absolutely say the op-ed was true. Then I think the headline, I think the sexual violence headline is a little harder to overcome, but I think that they are going with, she has lied to you, and they are sticking with their argument. She has lied to you. She is a lying liar that lies. These are all of the lies. The testimony is exaggerated. It doesn't match. You either believe all of it or none of it. And I think they're trying to say, if you don't believe the stuff that was over the top, then you can't believe any of it. So could it backfire? Yes, it could. But I don't think they had a position to argue splitting hairs, and I don't think they should have. I think it's a stronger position to argue, take it all or take none of it. Emily, would you get the transcript after this trial's over and be able to read all the sidebars? I don't know if that'll be available to the public. If it is available to the public, I will absolutely consider it. The judge said there will be audio and video on the computer, no picture. Thanks, Emily. The pictures are all printed out, so they wouldn't need them on the computer. So they will have a stack of papers like these. Hello from India. Jury was removed after acquittal in a famous Navy murder case here. Was the Amber Heard rebuttal effective? Was bringing in Constitution by Camille and rebuttal a good idea? I guess she was worried enough to be like, they're arguing the First Amendment and just a reminder that it doesn't protect lies. For Runkle jury reaction at the end of closing, if he's available. I don't know if he's still in the courtroom. And I think the rebuttal was good. I don't know if it was enough, but I think the rebuttal was good. Can the jury take into account COVID on their own accord, as it seems to make sense? They're allowed to use their common sense. And they're allowed to be like, nobody addressed this for us, but it seems like it could be a factor here. If they come back with a verdict today, could Judge A say that they didn't actually have time to review the evidence? No. They get to take the time that they need to take. They've been sitting there for 6 weeks. Why wasn't it brought up that WB dropped Depp as a result of Heard's claims, especially since Warner Brothers didn't drop her? Because from all the information I've gathered from you, amazing chat, because you are also wise, I have seen that he was paid for his role. So they bought out his contract. They didn't drop him in that sense. So even though he didn't appear on screen, I am thinking, even though he didn't appear on screen, he was still paid. So it's not going to go to damages. I also think I don't think it really matters. They were focusing on pirates, and Elaine Bredehoff, in one of the things she said that was coherent for me, talked about the damages capping after November 2, 2020. And that was in some of her arguments, like, look, after this date, it doesn't matter what happened. And that might be why too. So how many jurors deliberate? 7. You're cool. Thank you, Gloria Stars. I'll take it. May I ask you please to tell Ginger, hi, Ginger. I'm going to tell you something. I'm so glad you decided to study law. Follow up on it. We need more Camilles in the world. Thank you, ma'am. Well, you are welcome, Gloria. Ginger, get it. Get all of it. Go after that shit. Tear it the fuck up. Be a badass. Law can be fun. Get some sleep and stay hydrated, because that's the hardest part of law school, because your brain stops working after a while. Question, do you think the partners, kin of the jurors, give their opinions or outside info to them? They shouldn't. And if so, do they consider it? They shouldn't. I imagine they would be happy to discuss it afterwards. And while the jurors shouldn't discuss what happens in the jury room, I can't imagine how do you not watch this trial if your partner, spouse, child, sibling, cousin, colleague at work is on this jury? How do you not watch and just be like, I can't wait to talk to them. I can't wait to talk to them. I can't wait to talk to them. But no, they shouldn't be discussing this with them at all. And afterwards, not discussing deliberations. Jurors can talk about how they felt, what their experience was like. This has to be a wild thing. Like, did the jurors see the llamas? Did they see the alpacas? Not the llama, not the drama llamas, the alpacas. Did they see the alpacas? Question, can a judge take over questioning from the lawyer towards the person on the stand? Ask something that was not asked. Thanks for everything. No. The judge can't take over, though. Sometimes it happens. Not in a trial like this, but in like preliminary hearings and other types of hearings, it can happen where the judge is like, ma'am, can I just ask you this? And when I said drama llamas, was that a call out to a planner group that I'm a very big fan of on Facebook? Yes, I'm a nerd. Based off how the trial and closing arguments went, what's your professional opinion on how long it will take the jury to come back to a vote? I still think 3 to 6 days, though I think there was a path for them to come back today. I'm still in the 3 to 6. I'm in my guts. I'm in the 3 to 6 day range with the likelihood that they come back while I'm on a plane being very high. Why not mention her testimony when asked if she was scared of Johnny finding all her pictures of him? And she said, why would I? I think she said, why would it be? Or why would I be? I thought that was pretty damning. Lily, my brain. I don't know. There was so much testimony here. I think they had kind of crafted their story, but it was very much and you weren't afraid of texting to your friend? No. Well, that didn't make you feel afraid. Why would it? It might stick with the jury. If they are released, are they under 1 year? So when the jurors are released, there is a one year block on their information becoming public. That was requested by Amber Heard's team. Amber Heard's team asked to seal the juror info for a year, which means the media won't be able to find a way to contact them. The jurors can volunteer as tribute and be like, hi, I'm juror number whatever. I would sure love to tell you about my experience. They can choose to do that, but their information won't be available to the public to go reach out and find them if they don't want to talk. So yes, the alternates information is included. Can they ask the judge for a clear definition of defamation, since it's defined at least 2 different ways now? No, the jury instructions are what they have to use to define defamation, and the jury instructions walks them through bit by bit. And there's defamation by implication, and defamation per se. So no, they have to walk through the verdict forms and the jury instructions, and they need to rely on the jury instructions. Will the jury pick up on Rottenborn's misstatement? I have no idea. I think their brains are probably stopped. So this is a unique case. I don't know if there's much like it because of the celebrity involved and because of how long. Well, 6 weeks is a long time. If we get past 4 or 5 days, I'm going to start being like, that's interesting. It would seem that in full deliberation days that they should be able to do this in 6 days. I mean, it just depends. The longer it goes, the more concerned I am that they're hung. So that's what it is. Because I think once they find liability, I don't think they need to fight each other over the damages, because all the parties kind of were like, just whatever with the damages. Like, this is what we think you can find, but just like do whatever. Did you notice Amber Heard didn't clap for the stenographer? I did not notice that. I did not. I was looking at all the things, but I didn't. Can Amber leave the court and say that she was wrongly convicted if found of malice defamation? Not convicted because liability here because of civil case. But I mean, could she say that it was unfair, that the system is unfair, that the system is swayed against victims, that the system is unfair to women, that the system is protecting powerful men? I think that her team might say all of those things. I don't know if she should, but I think that the team might say all of those things. Question: can a lawyer marry their client after the case is over? Depends on the I mean, there's no bar against it. I've seen trial attorneys marry jurors that were on their jury, and then after that, the juror contacted the attorney and was like, "Hey, can we get a drink?" Always an interesting thing. I've had a number of friends contacted by jurors after the trial, being like, "Hey, can we get a drink?" And it's always unclear. Like, are you trying to ask me out? Do you want to talk about the case? Are you going to tell me that there was fuckery that I'm going to have to report to everybody? Like, I'm nervous. Why do you want to talk to me? I have questions, but I've seen that. And I mean, yes, lawyers can marry their clients. They're not unethical. Different jurisdictions have different limitations about romantic involvement with clients. It varies. The rules of professional conduct can vary greatly by jurisdiction. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. Can you say hi to my partner, Bridget? Hi, Bridget. You guys are all making me think I need a cameo. Can the jury award more? They have to have a reasonable basis for it, but yes, they can. Question: when will it be safe to eat muffins? It's safe to eat muffins now. Muffins all the time. Muffins for everyone. Did supporters fight outside? I have no idea. Did you notice Amber Heard's actual emotion When Camille referred to Whitney as her punching bag, I didn't see that. I will go back and look at all these things later today. When I'm streaming, the amount of information I'm taking in can be a lot. So there are little things that I might miss, which is why I go back when I prep for the podcast. New episode dropped yesterday. Plug for the podcast, the Emily Show, on all your favorite podcasting apps. But when I prep the podcast, I will go back and watch things. That's why I take notes, mostly so I can go back and see what I thought was important and look at it. Because when I'm streaming, I'm not just taking in the stream, but also the chat and also trying to process the information. So there are little things that I will miss. Runkle is invited and has the link. I assume that people will join when and if they are able, when and if they can, and when and if they want. But I will never demand that somebody get in here now, because it is up to them and it is their choice. It's just like when I pop into people's chats, I'm generally not asking to be on the stream. I'm popping into a chat because I can't stream, and I am chatting in the side while I'm doing other work. So occasionally it'll be like, Emily, get on the stream. And I'm like, I'm not streaming. I'm chatting. I like popping into the chat. I like the chat. That chick Chanel, hello. I was in a meeting, so I missed all of today. How much did each side ask for? Funny, you should ask. Team Depp asked for his dignity, his name, and to be released from the prison that the last 6 years have put him in, with a finding of liability. Team Heard said, basically, we went deuces on the 100 mil. We're not really asking for that, but we'd sure love $350,000 of punitive damages. Punitive damages are the you suck damages. Like, tell them that they suck. Punish them. Punish them with the punitive damages. Can they make PR statements? I didn't hear the judge address it, but I don't. If the judge hasn't addressed it, I would imagine she still wants them to not to. But I would, if they want to do that, I hope they would clarify with the judge. If you were part of the jury, what would your verdict, with all you've seen during these past weeks, be? It's hard because the part of being a jury is you're talking to other people. It's just like when I'm talking to the chat, there's times you bring stuff up and you, wise chat, bring stuff up and I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. So I don't know. Do I think that there's a lot of information that helps them find for Depp? Yes. But do I think there are questions, and Rottenborn didn't bring this up enough, and he should have. Rottenborn should have hammered on the fact that Amber Heard knows she's a public figure. She knows she's going to be photographed. If she's concocting a story, why concoct dates that coincide with the Met Gala, where she knows that she is going to be photographed? Why pick dates that coincide with the James Corden show? She knows she's going to be on that show. If she's going to make this up and lie, why lie when you know you're going to be on camera the next day? And he did not hammer that point in enough. They're calling her a liar. She knows she's going to be on national TV under the bright, bright lights. She knows it. Why would she tell you it's that date? If she's going to lie, pick another fucking date. Pick a different date when no one has seen you. I agree with easy to remember. Y'all, I agree with easy to remember. I agree with easy to remember. I agree with easy to remember those dates. But why not lean into that argument? Have you heard from Runkle since closing? No, I have not. I have been paying attention, but I have not. I have not. Why pick the dates? You guys are like hubris. I agree. Arguendo, I think he should have lent into it. Lean in. Because I think there's a juror that could just be like, hey, did anyone catch the time traveling iPhone? I saw it on social media. I did not catch it. Hold on. Let's see. Runkle has tweeted, and my voice is just, my voice is, Runkle has tweeted, my voice has yeeted itself. Let's see. From the courthouse, my best guess on the disturbance is just standard chaos outside. It could have been people leaving. It could have been Depp leaving in that. Hearing reports of a disturbance at the courthouse, it's not at the courtroom. That's fair. Outside the courthouse, it's a damn circus complete with a petting zoo trying to get to a good place to go live. And has the outside of the Fairfax County Courthouse turned into Coachella? Has it just turned into a fucking party? And you know, when people want to gather and like commemorate things, I wonder if people are gathering to commemorate things. Like, I want to be outside the same way that outside of Stanley Moss Courthouse for the Britney Spears hearings started with started with a few people there from the Free Britney movement and then more, and then the entire street shut down. I wonder if that's what's going on here. So why didn't Depp's team use up the remaining 4 hours? They didn't have anything else to say. So that's why. I gotta admit, I do like that Elaine wasn't reading off a script. Agreed. Problem is she can't control her tangents. Agreed. It's always fair. Look, reasonable minds can differ. And I always love an arguendo. It's like arguendo this. Would you collaborate with Popcorn Planet's channel on YouTube? It would be extremely entertaining. We have collaborated in the past. When I have time, I'm always open to have conversations. So lately I have been swamped. Question, can the jury decide that the damages go to Children's Hospital LA, High from Germany? They can't, but Johnny Depp can choose to do that on his own if he is awarded damages. They said they didn't want to punish Amber Heard. They're like, we're not here to punish her, which kind of goes against the he's doing this to be an abuser. He said, we're not here to punish her. He wants his name back. Let me see. I believe that she never meant to take it to court and would use it as blackmail instead, so Johnny would feel like he couldn't say anything. That's very possible. I gave you all of my opinion. I think if there's a win, it's on the tweet, but the jury could hang and the jury could find for no one. That really is my opinion. When will you look at outside evidence? I will absolutely start looking at outside evidence as we go on Jury Watch next week. So as I'm streaming, I'm hoping the plan is to invite people on that have a much deeper knowledge of the case outside this trial. Because on this trial, we know all the things, but a knowledge of this case outside the trial and be like, but girl, what about this? But girl, what about that? But girl, what about this? And have that conversation about it. So I'm hoping to do that during Verdict Watch because I feel like I'm going to be very sad. You know, we've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday that I'm not planning on being streaming. The jury's going to be dark. And I would like to see my kiddos. So I feel like by Tuesday morning, I'm going to be like, I miss everybody. And why are we not streaming? We have not streamed in 3 days and it's weird. So that's the thought. So that's what it is. So yes, I will be looking for some panels and stuff for Verdict Watch for people who want to come on. And you guys know I'm protective about my channel. I tend to run by myself. Why do I tend to do that? Because I hate it when the chat blows up with stop interrupting, because it just triggers me from being a kid who was yelled at to stop interrupting because I can't always help myself. I am ADHD. And so when I get excited and I want to have a conversation, I get like this. So I always bring on panelists who A, understand that, and B, aren't off put by that, and C, are in alignment with the values here that we hold as law nerds. So, and understand that sometimes I'm going to get like hyper. The way he is rocking himself in the chair is so sad. This whole case is sad. At the heart of this case, it's sad. At the very bottom, this is private people, even though they're celebrities, bearing everything and having the worst things anyone's ever said about you playing out on live TV. It's awful. Oh, we binged. Oh, that's a big bing. That's like a 3,000 bing. Thank you. I hope the jury comes back with a verdict for Depp and Amber has to pay the remaining donations of what she promised to the charities. And they could do that. If they want to be poetic about it, the jury can be poetic about it. They could be like, it's the 6th year anniversary. We're doing this. Can you explain what happens when the verdict is in? Does Johnny and Amber have to go back to court? They do not have to go back to court, Aaron. They might go back to LA. They might go back to whatever. They don't have to go back to court. So no, if they need to get on a private jet and fly out tonight, they can do that. I don't know if they would. I would wait. I think that is a conversation for PR and for their lawyers. If I'm the lawyers, I don't know if I want my client in the courtroom for the verdict. I don't know if I do. It's going to be an ultimate client decision, but I don't know if I want them there. Also, it could be a security risk, and you don't want it to be a security risk for anybody. Ready for this afternoon? Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for the mods. Huge thank you for the mods. My 7-year-old broke her elbow yesterday, slipped in socks. Can you shout out Charlie? Charlie! Those socks will get you. Those socks will get you. It's happened over here too. I have slipped in socks. My kids have slipped in socks. Sorry for the broken elbow. My oldest broke his wrist riding home from school because he like bumped into a curb. And my youngest broke his elbow at the zoo slipping because of the rain. His shoulder, not his elbow. Kate's elbow was in my brain. I hurt my elbow. Emily, do you just live in movie quotes? Yes. It's my superpower. Song lyrics work too. Thanks for all your coverage. Join the text crew and Law Nerds Unite. Thank you. Elaine's closing felt like someone explaining each scene of a movie, but in a totally different order and adding extra scenes. Casey. If it's also Cassie, I'm sorry. That is exactly what it was like. Accurate description. Thank you. That's exactly what it was like. If I'm on the jury, which I'm not, I'd want out of what made them think it was a good idea to use Umbridge in closing after she'd performed. I just do not get it. I don't either. Could Depp's team have called a real survivor to see the difference in testimony? No. No. Depp's team did. I love that you asked this question, though, Liz. Depp's team tried to call their doctor to show that the injuries and the description and the photos do not match, and it got blocked. So they were not able to do that. They tried to bring it in and the court denied their motion. So that is very interesting. I'm having anxiety about what to do when this trial is over. Batman, it's been 6 weeks. Do we have to go back to life before the trial? In all honesty, I don't know what to do. I can understand that. I totally get that. We will go here on this channel. I'm going to go back to the other cases we covered. There's a lot of cases that we need to update. There's a lot else going on. We normally do the in-court documents. I like the trial level court. I am not a commentator that loves to comment on the appellate level court and the Supremes. If it's appropriate, at times I will do so, but I really like the trial level work. That's where the stories come out in the law in motion. It's just so fascinating to see how people build their cases like a puzzle. I really like that part. So I tend to cover trial level stuff. If there is another streaming case that is kind of in the wheelhouse of what I do here, I will cover it. I intend to go and cover the Jen Shaw case. Actually, didn't they just have a court hearing? I think they did. I intend to go cover the Jen Shaw case that is not going to be broadcast and sit my happy butt in court every day and then report back and stream to you each night. If I were Camille, I would say that justice for JD would also set Amber Heard free from her web of lies. Interesting. She will not need to keep lying to cover the lies and can move on too. I think that's a good argument. It's like, hey, justice for Johnny Depp sets everyone free. I think that's a very good argument. They did not go that direction, but I like it a lot. So I like it a lot. How do we know when the jury is in? Follow all my socials. It will probably blow up on social. The court will alert the lawyers. I'm sure that the media around the court will be alerted and they will alert everyone else. What happens when they find Amber Heard to be lying? If the jury finds that Amber Heard defamed Johnny Depp, then they can award damages or not. But not much else. I don't think we're at the point where you're going to see motions to deal with sanctions for lying under oath and things like that. I don't think we're going to see any of that. It's Johnny Depp's birthday, so he may fly back. He might, if his daughter's not in Virginia with him. Can you explain the issue with how Elaine was explaining malice? Yes, I can, Jen. Great question. Let me pull up the jury instruction real quick that goes to that. And I'm going to pull up the element and then I'm going to tell you what she was saying. Where is it? My jury instructions are all the way at the bottom of this. All right. Give me jury instructions. And again, these are the model jury instructions. I'm not pulling up. I will pull up the court ones and share those. I have not pulled them up yet. Let's Control F ourselves into defamation. Let's spell it right, Emily. And then it doesn't work well if you spell it wrong. Darn it. This is why the Control F yourself started on the chat a while ago because the chat is wise. And I was struggling to find something in the document and somebody's like, Emily, just Control F it. And then days later, I was trying to do it again and my computer the browser crashed and my computer was like, Control F yourself. And that is how that got started. There are a lot of inside jokes. The OG law nerds will always tell you, especially with the Bings and we have our own little language over here, which is only right, which is why we talk about motions to yeet quite a lot. Let's see. Here's our defamation. Here's our defamation. And here's our malice. All right. So in the instruction in the law, malice is actual malice. Did I just wreck myself? I did. It was right there. It was right there. And I pulled it up bigger and it just disappeared. Oy, 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 oy. I didn't pull it up that much. No, I did. I did pull it up that much. Darn it. That's how I ended up doing that. Let us do this one more time. Come on. Sorry, y'all. Riveting. All right. This is right here. The defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, but lacked the reasonable ground. No, that is the alternate instruction. Where is my 3700 is up here. All right. Nope. Did the defendant make the statement knowing it to be false or believing it to be true? Did the defendant lack reasonable grounds for such belief to act negligently? Nope, that's not the exact instruction that was given. It is, here we go. Did the defendant make the statement knowing it to be false, or did the defendant make it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard to the truth? That is, with a high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false. That is malice. Willful falsity, knowing it to be false, or reckless disregard, a reckless, willful disregard to the truth. What Umbridge was arguing was that, Wildman putting a paper on the desk, it's like, okay, that's a dick move. That seems rude. Rude is not malice. Malice in the dictionary sense of the word malice, being malicious, is not malice for court. So that's why I thought Elaine arguing that those rude actions were malice was inappropriate. And we are joined by Runkle of the Bailey. Runkle, are you at the petting? We want to see the petting.
I'm not at the petting zoo. The petting zoo is crazy, and we got the heck out of there.
Smart.
Yeah. We're actually sort of grabbing margaritas.
Smart.
It's there's a lot of craziness at the courthouse.
Tell us.
So we and I wouldn't have been able to stream there. It's just all people shouting and, doing their thing. So it would have been all background noise all the time.
I wonder if the sheriffs are going to clear them so the jury can't hear them from inside deliberations.
I don't think the jury can hear them. That is a really sturdy building.
That's good.
So even just inside security, you don't hear a lot of what's outside.
That's good to know.
But once you go out, there's people playing music. There's alpacas. There's Depp impersonators. It is like a full-on circus complete with clowns.
It's a Free Britney rally. That's how the Free Britney rallies were outside of court. They had stages of music and performers. So it sounds very much like they've got a Free Britney type environment of people wanting to be a part of this moment.
Yeah. And, lots of people who didn't make it into the courtroom, but stayed there the whole day to basically show support. It's a whole thing. It's a whole social movement that's going on.
Do you think you are expecting a verdict today?
I would bet not on a verdict today.
No, do you think people outside court are hoping for that? Do you think?
I think they're hoping for a verdict.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bet not today, and that's partially because of the jurors that we found out were alternates.
Why do you
So the two that appear to be alternates, and this has been confirmed, is Juror 2, or Juror B, who is the guy I've been calling the boredom canary. My read on him has been that he's been very pro-Depp, because he has tuned out to the point of removing his assistive listening device during some of Amber Heard's directs and so forth. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a guy who just shows what he's thinking. And, if you've got a guy who's an easy read for pro-Depp, I want him on that jury. Juror H started out as really hard to read. She was just stone-faced. By the end of it, she was really warmly smiling when Vasquez was up. She shot Depp some sympathetic looks. I read her as also pro-Depp. And I also read her as pro-Depp and the kind of person who has a bit of a forceful personality and could have been the foreperson. So H is the one I am most sad to see leave that jury. I was really hoping we wouldn't see H. but I is still in there. The worst, I posted on Twitter that it wasn't the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario from my read would have been jurors H and I being alternates, because I really doesn't seem to like Amber at all.
And that's the one that's sitting in that 9 position down in the bottom of the jury box closest to where Amber was.
Yeah. So front row, far right.
Yep.
And he is, he often, he's appeared to nap at times, but he gets real interested when Depp's side is presenting things, or when Camille gets up to cross, he gets real interested. He's big on that. So that suggests to me that he's a guy who is, and he shows some pretty clear, some contemptuous expressions towards Amber at times. Like when she was up on the stand cross-examining, he was sort of making the "can you believe this crap" kind of expression. So I'm glad he's still in that room. And especially, he seems to be kind of angry about it. Napping can be because he's tired, but I think he's actually just sort of openly contemptuous of them and their positions. And I will say, Rob Law and Lumber and I were both in that courtroom together. He disagrees on this point. He thinks that juror I might flip because he's just wants to get out of there. I think he might just be stubborn enough to hang a jury. And this shows the disagreement, right? We're both, we're both practicing lawyers, and we both have a very different read on what his, we both agree that he seems to be very pro-Amber, but we have a very different read on sort of what he's likely to do if they're in a room where there's a hotly contested issue.
Interesting. And that's the thing with trying to read juries. It's like you never know. You never quite know how to read it. And somebody who looks like they're sleeping could be because they like that side of the case and their mind's made up and they're like, I don't need to listen to you. I already like you. You never ever know. But I love having practicing attorneys in the courtroom like y'all to give us your perspective. Can I ask you, I hate to fact check you, but someone who is in the room, and I need you not to fact check, to ask you if you agree or disagree. We are seeing from court TV that the jurors were glued in to Amber Heard's team's closing with Rottenborn.
With Rottenborn, they were interested.
Okay.
With Elaine, they started to get less interested.
Okay.
And what I saw was a sort of diminishing level of interest. In fact, the thing they were spending the most interest on was the jury instructions. They were locked in on that. And, I mentioned that before. I think that is at least interesting because they
need the roadmap. They want to know what they're supposed to do. They've been there for 6 weeks and no one's told them what to do.
Yeah. And it also indicates that they plan to be diligent, right? And that it indicates to me that they still have room to make up their mind because they want to hear how they should come to a decision. And, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? They're already going to have notions of what's going on, but they're paying attention. And I think people often don't give jurors, I think sometimes people give juries too much credit because people say, oh, juries are magical, and that's not necessarily true. But people also say oh, juries are just complete garbage. And these jurors were clearly alive to their responsibilities and very much, I think they're going to be in there taking it really seriously. I don't think they're in there fucking around. I think they're there to render what they see as a fair verdict and, a fair and legal verdict, because I think that there may be some discrepancy on this. Emotionally, you go, hey, I think Depp should win everything he wants plus 1 million alpacas. And legally, his case is weaker on at least some of the things, and I think pretty strong on one of the claims. So, we may see a distinction there, but the jury may not agree with me, right? The jury may say, listen, we don't think a tweet is republication, in which case, suddenly he's weak on 3 claims, and that's a bad place. So, a lot of this comes down to what does it mean to retweet something? And to retweet it with this sort of additional commentary that she added to it. Jury's going to be spending a lot of time thinking about that, I think.
They are, because legally, again, and I've said this, and we've both said this from the beginning, the law is on Amber Heard's side, and after trial, the facts are on Johnny Depp's side, and the jury has to figure that out.
Yep.
And that's
And
a lot to figure out after 6 weeks. That's a lot to figure out.
I mean, basically the rule on sort of this sort of public figure defamation is almost to the point of you lose walking in the door. You know, it's really hard. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who, you know, they feel in their heart of hearts that, you know, what should happen. And they don't realize that this is, you know, fighting a wood chipper. And the fact that we have gotten through this trial, and I'm sitting here saying this is a very real, up in the air case. Like there is, you know, if you asked me to put money down on it, I have notions of how I would do it, but I wouldn't be super confident that I'd be walking out of there with, you know, with all my cash at the end of the day. It's
And
really
to be in, because at the beginning of this case, it was, I don't see how you win this. And now it's like, oh, this could, I don't see Amber Heard winning the counterclaim. This is
No.
a fight over the op-ed. And this could
I
go
would-
either way on the op-ed. And
I
that
would
is,
be very shocked if she won the counterclaim.
I don't see counterclaim.
I think at this point she's fighting for zero.
Yes.
And I mean, that also kind of tells you a little bit about trial strategy for the day, because Elaine was the counterclaim and she burned so much time meandering around and trying to figure out where she was going. And,
Yep.
you know, and she's the one fighting for Amber should get dollars, which I just don't see there. So I'm wondering if that's Amber saying, you know, you need to make this a good case and then putting on a show for their client. But the effect of that was so damaging. Rottenborn, and I know lots of people are getting pissed at me online because I'm saying Rottenborn did a good job with his closing
He did.
and with his 6 minutes. He did.
I
He
don't-
absolutely did a good job. I've got a tree dripping on me here.
I don't like all of his arguments, but he did a
Nope.
good.
I don't like all of his arguments. Some of his arguments downright pissed me off.
Yep.
But some of them, I'm sitting there going,
Fair.
that's tough. Like he, you know, and the way he frames the issues, I'm like, I think that's too strong. But he didn't get corrected. And if you can frame how you're doing that without getting a judicial correction, well, then you're doing okay. And, you know, so I thought Vasquez on rebuttal did a great job of addressing the one-time argument, because the one-time argument was left unchecked,
Yep.
potentially fatal. Like that was, I was sitting there going, ooh, that's tough. She did a really good job of rephrasing it and reframing how the jury might make their decision.
And dialing it down. Yep.
Yep. And I mean, the thing is, when you look at what happened, like Vasquez, she's amazing. She is a force of nature. I would love to learn her tricks. You know, she is what like everybody aspires to be. Whatever she's getting paid for this, it is not enough. And I hope her hourly rate triples going forward, because like that was amazing. But you know, then Rottenborn gets to go and he made some good arguments. And he did, you know, she was hammering on, there's the old adage of when the facts are on your side, you hammer on the facts. When the law is on your side, you hammer on the law. And when neither is on your side, you pound the table. Neither side was pounding the table. Elaine might have been pounding the exit door.
Yeah, she had some. She was pounding on her watch. She was just like, "I've got to go."
And but Rottenborn made some good legal arguments. I think his factual arguments were weak because he's got less to play with on the factual arguments.
Not good.
You know, when he's like, hey, let me convince you that Amber Heard is actually the full victim she says she is, I'm like, you're chasing an impossible goal. You know, you're trying to catch up with a car on a foot race. It's just not happening. But in terms of his arguments of, you know, Depp himself says that this is abuse. That's going to be something the jury is going to be talking about and deciding if they agree with. And they may well, because it's really hard to get at the place where you're saying, we believe Depp, but we also disbelieve Depp.
Right. And that's where that headline is. That's where that headline is so powerful. And that's where Yes, we are using, just like pledge and donation are apparently synonymous, we are using quote tweet somewhat interchangeably. It was a quote tweet, not a retweet, chat, we know, but when she added to it, we know it's not just a direct retweet where you're not adding anything. She added to it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not just sharing a hyperlink, it's adding to it, which is actually why it's in play here. If she had added nothing to it, it would not legally be in play.
Yeah, I don't see how that claim would have survived a motion to strike if she had just retweeted.
It wouldn't, but it wouldn't have survived a motion to dismiss early on or a demur early on either. Like the law was against it. So
yeah, it's just it was such a I think the main thing that really comes out of that though is the time management aspect. Because Rottenborn did an excellent 6 minutes.
Yeah, he did a great 6 minutes.
But I mean, without being profane, I can think of all sorts of analogies here, but none of them I'm really going to go with. But 6 minutes is not always enough time to get done what you're hoping to do. And it can be a really good 6 minutes and still not, be enough. Meanwhile, Camille had 40 minutes, 39.
Yep.
And she finished up with 5 minutes to spare by my clock. And, my clock was sort of a rough approximation. But, so she had comfortable time for everything she wanted to say. And she was able to both address everything they dealt with and spin up more plates than Rottenborn could stop at that point.
I liked how she narrowed down and said, yes, she didn't diminish that these other types of abuse are abuse, but she said that's not what was implied in the op-ed. And that is not what was implied in the op-ed. And that is really important. And I'm glad she saved it without diminishing the other things. I thought it was powerful.
Absolutely. And
refocusing the jury on that when she said that sexual violence headline, she's not implying that she was yelled at. She's not implying that Johnny Depp is a dick that says rude, nasty, awful words that most of us wouldn't tweet or text. She was talking about violence, physical violence, and she narrowed that in well.
Yeah, and the other thing I will mention is she, on her rebuttal, I think it was, she said, all you have is Amber Heard's word. Do you believe her? And she left like a good 10 seconds of silence.
To let something pop into their head, yes or no. She wanted them to pop into their mind, yes or no.
And the jury did not waver their attention from her in that 10 seconds. And 10 seconds of dead air is like...
It was a lot.
It was a long time. I was like, you got to start talking again. But I'm looking at the jury and I'm going, but the jury's not thinking so. The jury's hanging on her words. They want to hear it's the whole, if you've watched Rocky Horror Picture Show, the shiver with anticipation. And they were sitting there like hanging for the finish.
I love
and
that
I'm going,
so much, Runkle.
I'm going, she's got them eating out of her hand. It's really, she did more damage in that 39 minutes than Rottenborn could hope to fix in 6 minutes.
Yes.
And so as much as he came out swinging with his 6 minutes.
And that was that was the using time well, which is very triggering to me as someone who does not use time well at all. This is not a case. I would not ever want to have to do this like this, but they did it brilliantly.
And the other thing that was startling is just thinking about this. Like, the more I think about this, the more I think that their whole closing round would have been improved if Elaine had just never stood up.
Yep.
Because then Rottenborn would have had all that extra time to play with. And I don't think Elaine helped a bit. I
don't either. And I think Rottenborn, I don't know if Elaine is the senior attorney. I'm going to guess that seniority-wise, she is the senior attorney. And sometimes those things factor into this. Amber Heard might have wanted the appearance of a woman standing up for her and a woman being her sword and shield. That might have played into it. But I think when we saw Amber Heard on her rebuttal case, that her chemistry with Rottenborn was so much better in a questioning way. It was more controlled, more direct. I just thought it was.
And I think we saw more Rottenborn towards the end of it. And I tweeted just recently, I'm like, why have they been hiding this guy under a rock? he's really good at what he does.
He's better
And
in cross-examination, and he was better at direct than he was at cross-examination because his style
he's,
of cross is off-putting.
yeah, I mean, I feel like part of the reason why he's off-putting is because the case he's got to make is off-putting.
That's fair.
And I think he would do, I think if Rottenborn was on the Depp side, that he would be a lot more sympathetic in terms of people liking him better. I mean, the problem with all of this is having to do that sort of intellectual analysis, because, you know, I come out of this and it's like, I have strong personal feelings, and some of those are based on like my personal background and so forth. And that kind of thing is poison to making good decisions. As a lawyer, if you're coming at this and you're thinking, I really want one side to win, yet one of the skills is putting that aside. And, you know, especially if you're doing, you know, criminal defense or prosecution work or anything like that,
You're used to
you
putting
don't,
it aside.
you don't want to fall in love with your case, because, you know, as a prosecutor, if you fall in love with your case, you can end up being Binger and running a whole, you know, thing that maybe you shouldn't have run. And as a defense lawyer, if you fall too in love with your case, you can end up running a completely unsympathetic case because you just don't realize how tone deaf it is, because you are coming from a different mindset.
Yep.
And so I think there's a lot of commentary online that is very harsh towards him. And I think some of that is that people, you know, you frame things in that mindset. And, you know, I think a lot of people out there, and myself included, would like to see, you know, the justice for Johnny Depp. That, you know, and I really liked that Camille Vasquez managed to work that into her closing.
Too.
Like,
I do too.
I was like, so, but you can't let that like, especially when you're deciding things like, do you like this lawyer? Is he a good lawyer?
Well, I think those two things can be very different. The likability versus good lawyer, I think, can be different.
I got a referral from a police officer at one point. They sent a friend of theirs to me because I had really trashed the guy on cross-examination. And afterwards, so, you know, he told me when he was making the referral, he's like, I walked out of there and I was super pissed off. And later I realized that I was pissed off, but you made a good argument, you won it. And, you know, you were doing your job, you were an excellent lawyer. And I was pissed off because I thought I was in the right and you just completely, you know, trounced me. You know, he was able to realize after he settled down a little bit, he was like, I guess that was good lawyering. But in the moment, he's like, I just hate this guy. It's really easy to do that. And
especially
I mean,
the one on the stand getting roasted. Like nobody wants the one on the stand getting roasted. It's not surprising to me that there is snappiness between Johnny Depp and Rottenborn. Rottenborn was part of some of these depositions. It's not surprising. These attorneys and clients have been going back and forth for years. It's not surprising. It's not surprising.
One thing I will mention is an interaction I saw in the courthouse hallway, which was Chu and Rottenborn running into each other.
Oh, tea.
And at this point, just about everybody's left, right? So they're not putting on a show for anybody or anything else, but they shared a real genuine handshake. They both sort of said, you know, good work in there. You know, it was sort of they were sort of sharing that it was a good, you know, good, well fought case. And they had some camaraderie. They were, there was a moment where they sort of made a joke about they're packing out files. And keep in mind, 6-week trial. This is like hand carts full of boxes, right? And, you know, was a Chu joke that it was fan mail for Johnny Depp. And they were, you know, able to share a laugh about that. And I'm going, this is what I want to see, because as much as lawyers will get into the courtroom and, you know, can really be, you know, they were at each other, right? They were really, you know, there were objections flying back and forth. They were saying, you know, the other side's arguments are disgusting.
Yeah, there was snarkiness. They called each other's clients abusers and wife beaters. They pointed fingers about who didn't turn over instructions when. They made motions for sanctions against each other multiple times in the course of this litigation.
And they walked out of there and they're able to shake hands
Yep.
And it was a real genuine smile. Like, and again, there's not many people around. Like, there's no cameras, there's no anything. I just happened to be sitting there messing with my phone, sending out tweets.
Yeah.
So,
and we saw it with the judge too. Judge A had a really nice statement at the end of close of trial there. They got a clap from the court reporter, and the attorneys genuinely seemed appreciative that over 6 weeks of this case and years of litigation in this courtroom, they seemed really appreciative that it went as smoothly as it did. They had one day where the court reporter was a little late and one day where a juror was late. This ran in a very smooth fashion, and that is due to an extraordinary effort on behalf of the judge and the court staff and the judicial assistants and the attorneys. And we saw an appreciation for that at the end. I thought it was a really nice moment.
The judge being able to plan a 6-week trial out to the day and have it finish exactly on the day that she scheduled it to finish, it's, you know, it's basically a miracle.
Yeah.
This is, you know, somewhere out there, somebody, you know, has just lost a lottery, you know, just because all of the luck in the universe went to that happening.
It really speaks a lot to this judge's not just temperament, but competency. And it's the lawyers, when they said you have 61 hours and 15 minutes, that's a conversation with the lawyers to determine how long they need to try the case. And that is the lawyers knowing the time they need to try the case. And while I will still give snark to Team Heard for running the clock low, I wonder if that's because of Johnny Depp's cadencing and pacing on cross, because Amber Heard's stories went long. But really, that timing ran down to the minute, and they still got it done the day they were supposed to, and got it to the jury hours ahead of the end of the court day. That's incredible.
The other thing I really like about this judge is you got to see a little bit of her sense of humor when the jury is out. You know, when the jury's in, she is super regimented, super professional. She's the ex-Marine, you know, legal badass.
Yep.
And, you know, when the jury's out, she's like, let's share some banter and let's, you know, we'll have some fun about this. Like when they both were saying that the deputies, and I mean, I feel for the deputies. They have had to deal with a world of shit in this.
That they would. This is not the downtown LA courthouse where you get celebrities in their own divorce cases all the time. This is Fairfax County, Virginia. Their high profile cases on their website has 2, and one of them's a local criminal case. This is out of the norm for them, very much so.
And they were very much figuring it out as they went along, and some days worked better than others. But, you know, and they were adapting to problems that came up. I'm sure that, you know, if there is ever another of these trials in Fairfax County, Virginia, they're going to run things a little differently and, you know, maybe have a better sort of protocol. But I mean, you got to feel for just
lineups and stuff.
And people wanting to stampede and people wanting to, you know, all of this stuff. But when you know, I think it was Rottenborn, or no, it was Elaine, thanked the bailiffs for their work.
Thank you, Chad. Retired Marine. The has reminded us, once a Marine, always a Marine. Retired Marine.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Chad.
So what is it? When she was thanking the bailiffs for their work, and then you see, you know, and what is it? Ben Chu gets up and says, well, I think on this, I can respectfully agree with my friend, you know, with the opposing counsel. And she's like, well,
to get out the word agree.
She's like, I'm glad you can at least agree on something. And I'm going, this is fun, right? This is so I really like how she was handling a lot of this. There were contentious objections. We saw these sidebars all through the trial where you see people, you know, when they're animated, they're arguing and she's smiling at them. And, you know, we can't hear what she's saying because that white noise machine is powerful.
Right.
But she was very, I think she's a great judge, and I really appreciate her as a person. So,
do you know if Johnny Depp and the lawyers had left yet, or were the lawyers still boxing out when you were leaving?
Lawyers were still packing up when I was leaving. I don't know how far they're going to go because, you know, they might be waiting for a verdict. Depp, on the other hand, is out of there. He has permission to not be there for the verdict, and his motorcade has already left. I don't think he's coming back. So for all the
on a plane and getting out of there.
I mean, I can't imagine that either side advised their clients to do anything other than go to your hotel or your home
Yeah.
and hide out. Like just, order Uber Eats and get them to deliver it at the far end of the the drive and have your people pick it up.
Yes.
Do not let a paparazzi with a high, with a super zoom lens catch a glimpse of you through a window.
Right.
Because when this verdict comes down, somebody's going to make a stink face.
Right.
And you don't want that captured.
Absolutely. So, and everybody's pointing out that it is his daughter's birthday today. So,
Yes.
it is his daughter's birthday today. And you don't know if she is in Virginia or if she's not or what he's doing, but they had permission that they don't have to be there. So they're not going to be there. And I
hope that whatever they're doing, that it's lovely, because I feel like everybody deserves a little moment of peace after this.
they need a bathroom nap is what they need.
Yeah. Me too, but I guess hashtag me too. Depp was looking, I gotta say, when he came in, he's looking a little nervous. Now,
How could you
people
not?
are gonna what's that?
How could you not be? After 6 weeks, it's in someone else's hands. You've been doing this for years and you've turned it over to someone else. I've never not been nervous for a verdict ever.
Yep.
I've never not been nervous because you
Yep.
never know what is happening and you just can't guess it.
I know there's lots of people who are going to be saying, oh, you're saying bad things about Depp. I'm not. That's exactly it, is how could you not be nervous on something this momentous? And, if you're thinking, as I do, that he's this victim of very serious abuses and is waiting to see if he's going to get justice for it, that's a hell of a thing to be waiting on right now.
Yeah. It is.
I don't. And, I'm always there. For when I'm in a criminal trial or anything, I'm always nervous waiting for the verdict.
Same.
And, but the client is always way more nervous. Even when we've had a great trial and I'm pretty sure the verdict is going to be, an acquittal, client is still a ball of nerves.
Of course. Of course.
And
it's the same. It's the same with victims of crime and witnesses waiting to hear what's going to happen. There's a lot of nerves in it. And that only amplifies when there's been more. So I've done a number of retrials. The most a case I've had has retried is 3, and it was a conviction on the 3rd retrial. But this is not round 1 for Depp and Heard. He lost in the UK. So it adds to it, I think, as you go down this road. And so both parties, I think, are probably tremendously nervous. I can't imagine that they wouldn't be. And for the attorneys, they're going to take a deep breath and probably take the weekend off if they can. But then they're going to be fielding media requests and emails and their own nerves. And there's not much work you can get done while you're waiting for a verdict, or at least I never could. It was always miserable.
No. You're waiting for a verdict, and if somebody, I'm always sitting there going, okay, well, I could start working on my next file because there's nothing else to do on this one. But I can't focus. I can't concentrate when you're waiting for something like that. It's just, if it's going to take more than one day, you can't sleep necessarily.
I was wandering around the office, stress eating other people's candy bowls and chatting about what was going on in their cases. Just plopping in other people's offices.
I've had judge alone trials where they're like, okay, I'm going to get you a written decision and it's going to be 30 days. And that's a really crappy 30 days, right? Because you're sitting there just anguished.
Oh, there's an end point. With juries, you don't know. Runkle, we've got a question for you. Carolyn says, longtime listener, first-time caller, do you know which lawyers are staying? Emily, can they find in favor of Johnny but award no money for damages? They can. Do you know which lawyers are staying around for the teams, if you had any sense?
I don't, but if I had to place a bet, Camille, Vasquez and Mr. Chu, and also on the other side, Rottenborn and Brederhoff.
I'd imagine. Yeah.
They're not going to pack the rows the way they have been. Because, this is the other wild thing about this trial is they've got a row of lawyers that's like, 3 rows deep. It's,
many lawyers today. And all the teams were in court today. And you got to see all the behind the scenes people who are probably working in an office somewhere in the courthouse or a conference room that have been doing stuff and research and probably watching the case on court feed or a stream. Probably not this one, but
some of the lawyers I haven't seen before. Yes. And I suspect that they were probably in an office in the back, with like a court feed on one thing, and an email, a messaging client on the other.
Yep.
And a research thing open.
Yep.
And just, okay, they said something. Research. Here's a case, send.
Yep.
You never get that for your average trial. Like this is, it's like you imagine going to the supermarket and you're putting stuff in your own cart. This is the equivalent of like you walk into the supermarket and you've got 15 people to go do your shopping and arrange things for you. It is, it's just so much more resources than you normally have for any of this.
Incredible teamwork. I mean, when they were arguing the first motion to strike, and somebody is handing, I think it was somebody handed Ben Chu the case law up on a Post-it note, and he just went flawlessly into it. That is a level of trust we saw from this team that was really inspiring to see how well they work together. Because generally when I was working, it was just me or me and a case detective, but I can't have a case detective handing me the case law. That's not what they do. They're law enforcement. So it was generally just me. In a rare case, it would be me and one other attorney, but that was rare. And then we were still doing everything on our own. So it was nice to see it. I mean, money changes the type of trial you have quite substantially.
But I mean, just the level of trust there, because they all know that they're on top of their game.
Yep.
I mean, I have had, I have worked at firms, and I'm not going to name anybody, but where you assign another lawyer to assist you with the research, and then you get a bunch of cases back, and then I spend time reading them because I'm going, sure, you found me these cases, but are they any good?
Right.
That like your professional reputation is on the line when you read that Post-it note.
Yep.
Because the judge could say that case is wildly inappropriate. It's been reversed, or it doesn't say what you think it says. This is really a trust fall at a cliff kind of thing. And they are really working well together. And I really like to see that.
It is. It was really nice to see. Do you have time for a few questions, or do you need to go? I don't want to keep you from margaritas. Margaritas are amazing.
Let's handle 2, and then I'll go grab margaritas.
Then you'll go grab margaritas. All right. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm going to see if we have any for you specifically. Question. What was the jury's reaction to Elaine mocking Johnny Depp again? Did you see she got a little bit into that voice in her closing? I
think she was trying to do the voice less because it was less obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might just be that, her back is to me, so I can't actually hear her as well as the jury can.
It wasn't quite as aggressive.
The jury at several points seemed to be a little put off. And there were a couple of jurors who I thought sort of made a little bit of a really face at that. I don't think that's never a good idea, right?
I was still appalled by that.
The other thing is, as a lawyer, you really want to come in there and you want to be in the position of a trusted friend. You want the jury to basically think, this is the nice lawyer who's helping me get to the right decision. And, because at that point you can convince the jury of all sorts of things, and you can say, hey, because if they trust you,
they need to like you.
Yeah. But if it's not just like, I mean, if they think you're being unfair to the evidence, or,
US twisting words, splitting hairs, being slimy.
Yeah. So like when I have a police officer on the stand, it's, constable or whatever, so-and-so, you treat them with respect, because even if you are alleging this person is a terrible police officer who is engaged in multiple intentional rights violations, you still want to be seen as the person who is the sort of the adult in the room.
Yeah.
And you lose that when you do that sort of thing. It's not a good move. So I didn't like that. I don't think the jury liked it either. That's the kind of thing to just purge from your vocabulary if you're a lawyer.
Without disclosing your travel plans too much, will you be in the United States past the long weekend when the jury resumes, if they resume on Tuesday?
I will not. If we get a verdict today, I'm going to be in there to see it. Otherwise, I'm going to be watching it on the same feeds as everyone else.
All right.
I mean, Virginia is beautiful. I never really thought of Virginia as a possible vacation destination, and it's lovely here. It is.
Also Tennessee. we still have trees. It's very cool here too. I'm just saying.
I may have to make the trip out at some point, but
See, looks a little like Virginia, and we've got we've got some great stuff. Runkle, is there a tornado inbound? Are you being weather safe? The chat.
I don't think there's a tornado inbound, but if so, I feel like a margarita is a great preventative measure.
Agreed, and I think Rob will take good care of you. He's a local, so Runkle is not just running around by himself. He has the locals there, boots on the ground to help out. So,
which is also good because exhausted Runkle is my attention deficit sort of goes up to 11, which is basically just all of the usual chains on my attention deficit are broken, and I'm kind of just running around. Rob is very level-headed, and that is a good thing for right now.
Do you, and you're running on no sleep, and you've been sleeping on the ground. Are you anticipating streaming this evening? And if so, do you want to tell everyone where to find you? Because I really want to let you go get a margarita.
So you can find me at RunkleOfTheBailey. If you put that into YouTube, it'll come up with me. There's not a lot of Runkles out there, so it's sort of easy to find. I am planning on streaming later today. I'm going to have to figure out sort of what time. First of all, like for right now, all I'm doing is just waiting on juror watch, because if we get notice, if we get word that they're coming back, we're dropping everything and going back there. And
close.
Yeah. So I don't want to go, sort of base camp is Rob's place and it's a little distance away from the courthouse. We don't want to go that far.
Yeah.
So it may also be wise for me to take a nap in between now and then and just recover a little bit of brain cells, because
fair.
The two that are left are fighting with each other. And
well, a margarita sounds delightful. Go get a margarita. That is exactly on the top of my list this evening as well. A margarita and some tacos. This trial has made me want tacos ever since Josh Drew testified about 30th birthday party with tacos. I have wanted nothing but tacos. So I am highly susceptible to that suggestion. Tacos are always a good idea. So enjoy. Runkle, thank you so much for spending your time with us and joining the chat here. We're still at over 140,000 people in the chat. I'm sure you didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't see that. I didn't tell you when you came in. So that's where we're at. So, and you guys, if you follow kind of the minute to minute, Runkle is on Twitter at the same handle. So,
and I may pop into some other streams. I'm probably going to be fairly erratic, but for right now, margaritas are the plan. So I'll catch you in a bit. And
streaming, we love it. Runkle, good to see you. Thank you, friend.
Cheers.
Bye. You guys, I'm so glad Runkle was able to join us and give us kind of his takeaways. I'm going to definitely answer a few more questions for you. I know we are all still here and waiting. We don't know. Let's see. It is almost 5 o'clock on the East. We haven't heard anything yet from the court. I don't think we're going to today. I agree with Runkle. So we'll see. If both lose, who pays the lawyers? The people who hired them. We saw a lot of that in the Britney Spears case when James Spears was like, wait, why aren't you paying my lawyers? And then Britney's mom was like, wait, why aren't you paying my lawyers? And then we were all like, haha, pay your own lawyers. Do you think this trial will set standards? Not in the legal sense, but I think a lot will be learned from a large scale media trial where social media plays a role that is televised. I think there was a lot to be learned about how this trial was run. I think this courthouse, this judge did a tremendous job running this trial, and the legal teams as well. But I think that there will be things learned from this with the large scale attention. Will we see another case like this with this much attention? I don't know. And I don't know when we will, but there will be a lot to be learned about trials in the age of social media. And we're still learning those things, especially when they are streamed like this. Manila said, I worked as a pro submissive at a kink dungeon. Okay, where I regularly get bruises. It is really hard to cover those with makeup. A, I'm fascinated. I need you to write books. I have questions. B, amazing. C, they are really hard to cover. So I love that. Awesome. I love that you shared that. I fucking love this audience so much. I just love this audience so much. Do you ever find out what happened in the morning Johnny had the kitchen tirade? Something happened. Johnny Depp was never clear in his testimony. From what I've gathered from social media, it seems that, and something is happening. There is a black SUV. I don't know if it's the lawyers. I'm assuming, there's Benchu. So it's the lawyers leaving court. I don't know if it was the day he lost money or right after his mom died. He said, I don't have the metadata. I don't know when this was filmed. They never quite pinned down a date on that. But from what I've gathered from social media, it seems that it was around that time. Question, what do you mean the laws on Amber Heard's side? Just curious. I feel like it's obvious that she is nuts. Well, I don't think it's obvious that she's nuts. I think there is a lot of room for conversation on that. But aside from that, the law is on Amber Heard's side. The law of defamation is an exception to the First Amendment. And I don't know why they argued it so much, but it is an exception to the First Amendment. And the standard is very high with that malice. I think it's easier in this case than some others because you have some actions like leaking things, like the people cover, where you can find malice. You're trying to find someone's state of mind through circumstantial evidence. It's legally a high bar for defamation. They are hard cases. It doesn't mean they're impossible. We just saw it with Cardi B and Tasha K, and that jury was not out. That case was shorter, but that jury was not out that long, like a day, maybe. So, and there was less for them to consider. I'm going through waters. It was less for them to consider. So, why didn't they mention Whitney's version versus Amber's version of the stairs? Totally different. I don't know if it mattered to them. They talked about it a bit, but they were talking about Amber's lies, and they really focused on Amber's lies. Even if the jury decides Johnny verbally abused her, can they announce during their reading that they don't believe the sexual or physical abuse part? No, they can't. They can't say we believe this, not this. All they're doing is filling out those verdict forms. So I appreciate the question, Natasha. No, they cannot do that. Meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. Stuck on all of Amber Heard's estranged friends' witnesses. What if they're only testifying out of obligation because they publicly supported her? I don't know. They can't deny they were passengers but bailed. It's interesting to me that in the depositions, they talked about how much she reinitiated contact with them right before the depositions. So with over 114,000 votes, you guys voted that you think the verdict will come in 1 to 3 days at 51%, 37% today, and 10% of you are holding out for 4 to 7 days. Thank you guys. I thought that was very interesting. Rachel XOXO, good to see you. Camille or Salty, who would do it better? I think the two of them together would be a fantastic team. Different lawyers with different styles, but both good on their feet. So I don't know if there's a better. But for this, it goes by case. For this case, Johnny Depp needed a female attorney who could stand ground with Amber Heard and not be intimidated by her, who the jury would still like. A male attorney cross-examining Amber Heard the way Camille Vasquez did would land us in a very different place here and could very much turn the jury off. It would be a whole different thing. They needed a strong female attorney to do that. Please ask Runkle of the judge expression when the team objected to Elaine 3 times. I should have. I didn't. I'm sorry. When is it decided who will be chosen as alternates and what decides it? The judge said they put numbers in an envelope at the beginning of trial and sealed it. So that's how they did it in that court. Different courts do different things. Question for Runkle. Any guesses to 4-person? I did not ask. I'm wondering if it's going to be juror number 9 or seat number 9. Juror in seat number 9. Question. What, if any, verdict would you both give if you were a member of the jury? And I think both of us have the same position. It's like we can see them winning on the tweet, and I can't see Amber Heard winning the counterclaim, but also juries come to a decision in a group. Is there any that seemed hostile to JD? I'm sorry that we didn't get to that, but ask him that on Twitter. Did Runkle say pro Heard? He was talking about the juror that he has previously said was pro Depp. So I didn't even hear that. But when we were talking about juror number 9, I know that he believes that juror is pro Depp. What did the judge mean when addressing the lawyers about let us know where to reach you for jury questions? That is a great question, Jennifer. The jury is allowed to send out questions. And the question will not be dealt with without notifying the jurors or without notifying the lawyers. So where to reach you is whose cell phone is on with the ringer on that will go through immediately. Generally, in a case, if you've got local attorneys, sometimes they have offices right in the courthouse, especially in criminal trials. Often the prosecutors and defense attorneys work in the offices in the courthouse. That's not always the case. Where will the lawyers be? She said, I want somebody within 10 minutes for questions. Somebody needs to be able to get to the courthouse in 10 minutes or stay in the courthouse. So who am I calling if the jury has questions? Because they need to run it by all of the other all of the attorneys before they answer a question, which is why questions from the jury take a while to answer. Hopefully, if juror questions come out, we will get notified because someone will be in the courtroom and we'll be able to share that info. Nelson said, if you believe she's lying, then her picking public dates fits the narcissism train of thought. And the jury might not even wonder. I just wondered why it wasn't argued more. Can you explain more? I get all sevens must be a yes, but there's 3 statements and you said you think he'll win on the retweet 1. So can the other 2 be not wins, but he wins on the retweet? I don't know. 3 wins possible. It's possible he wins on all 3 claims. I think it's unlikely. I don't think he will win the print version. I think it's more likely that he will win on the quote tweet, the republication, or on the digital version. That's what I think. But there are 3 claims, 3 causes of action, and we will see. But yes, he could win on just one of them. And I think even for him, winning on just one is a win. And that's how the jury signals really whether sexual violence matters to them. If sexual violence, if that headline matters to the jury, he loses on the print version and wins on the online version. And that is how they signal that decision. So thank you for your coverage. I'm struggling with a very bad depression and your coverage literally kept me going on some bad days. Thank you. Here to have a chat. Love this community and always lean into this community. The chat is often here and the chat has a lot of experience with getting through hard things. This is a group, the Law Nerds do hard shit on the daily and share it. And that's one of the things I love so much about this community. You're welcome for doing what I do. Hats off for sticking to streaming. You're welcome. I was originally just going to do Depp's testimony and Heard's, and then all y'all were like, girl, where the fuck are you going? And I'm like, I guess we do this every day now. And the mods were like, we ride. Thank you for your coverage. You're welcome. I'm ADHD. My brother's self-medicated ADHD, and my stepsis is only recently treated BPD. I feel so seen. You're welcome. It is true. And that's why I share about my own quirks, because I think it helps us have a conversation without stigma about our quirks. We all have quirks. And I think it just helps to share that. It's something I was ashamed of for a very long time. And now I'm just like, this is who I am. I know who I am, and I'm going to share how I am. And I'm going to try to make that not impact others and try to make sure I set the boundaries that work best for me and encourage others to do the same. It's Shalene Johnson super chatted earlier. She is making incredible content about being a woman diagnosed with ADHD, not as a teen, as an adult, and is making incredible content about it. So if you don't follow her, all of my ADHD peeps, she shares a lot about that. Could you hold a workshop for professional women with ADHD? I don't know if I'm qualified to do that because I'm just a person living with ADHD who's found the things that work. I'm always happy to talk about it, but a workshop, I think of someone who can actually teach something. And I don't know if there's much I could teach. I have a podcast episode where I go into what work was like. It was an Ask Me Anything, and there will be a members Ask Me Anything soon. I'm going to do that next month after we clear this trial. And I'm sure it will come up then, but we will see. You talked about 2 of 3 win-loss verdict. I think they absolutely could split the causes of action and he doesn't win on all of them. I just want to go pull the verdict forms online. So I know which ones are which. Other than listening to all audio, what would you do as a jury? What else should they do during deliberations? Should is hard because they get to decide. I would want to hear audio because I'm curious and nosy and it's been edited and I'd want to know. But they're going to have to see if anybody has any strong feelings one way or another and start having a conversation from there. Somebody might be like, can we talk about these photos? Let's start there. They're going to have to decide where to start. So, we ping. Thank you guys. You know what we haven't done all day. Jesse said, can you shout me out? It's so slow at work and you're making my day go by so much better. Also doing a drawing of you. Where do I send it? You're amazing. My email is public. You can always tag me and stuff on social. Thank you so much, Jesse, and appreciate that. Of course, we haven't done a Bing in a while, and I think now is the time. We are on the road. Where are we on the road to? We're on the road to 600,000. Y'all are wild. Y'all have gotten wild, and I appreciate you. This is the road that we're on. Thank you so much. It's kind of fun to just watch the numbers spiral, and I appreciate it. This is a wild growth chart. I don't know. That's what's happening. It's crazy. We binged. It's time. Oh, it binged. Move your head. Ah! And the Law Nerds in the chat can share that was from when we hit 100,000 subs. Question, general law. Can you speak to your experience of having been a lawyer and how and if it was ever difficult to represent a person you may not have totally agreed with? I had the wonderful pleasure of being a deputy district attorney. When I did not agree with things, I was able to try to work to make sure that that case did not continue to go forward, because it wasn't a I wouldn't say I ever like morally disagreed with something. I was a prosecutor, so fighting for victims of crime is aligned. I But if I had questions about stories or whether things should be prosecuted, and I had some, I will talk about those in other content. I am very, very tired, and some of those stories are very, very difficult to talk about. And I would need to be like set to be able to talk about that. But there are cases that I fought for that I thought should not go forward. And that's what you do. You fight for it. It's different than being a defense attorney. As a defense attorney, you might think, this guy is super guilty. But if the police or the government overreached or did things that they're not supposed to do, then that individual is entitled to a defense and should have a defense, because government overreaching, also not a good thing. So it's different for defense attorneys from prosecutors, but from prosecutors, you get to be in the position of being able to advocate for cases that should not go forward. And that is part of doing the job with ethics and integrity. And that is very much aligned with my very Enneagram 1 self. Do jurors have to show the reason for their decision? No, they don't. They just fill out that form that we talked about. When are you interviewing Camille? As soon as she says yes. We went to the same law school. I very much want to make that happen. I will try to make fetch happen on that all day long. I also am going to be part of a CLE that I will share on all of the socials. If any of you need CLE credit, I'm going to be part of a CLE that will be available for streaming about this case with a panel of, I'm assuming, other attorneys. No idea who else is on the panel, but I will be doing that soon. I need to take a look at the dates, but I'll share that on social. If you are an attorney and want to do that, I will share where that will be available. Question at the end, does evidence just get put away in an archive, or are notes made before it's archived? Jurisdictions may vary, but generally those lists of the evidence are already done, and then stuff goes into archive, and it depends on who archives at the court or the it depends on criminal cases. It can be the agency archiving it. I worked in archives as a law clerk with all of the boxes from the O.J. Simpson trial. It was a lot of boxes of stuff, but those are all the case boxes. The court evidence stays with the court. So, and I don't know how the courts archive it. That is my thank you. Queen of Gensylvania. Thank you, Emily, for entertaining me and educating me throughout this whole trial. I learned a lot. You turned me into law nerd. I will stick around. Thank you. I will be here. I'm not going anywhere. I will still be streaming generally on Tuesdays and Fridays. No coffee and Cursey Words the last few weeks. No Friday Night Lives the last few weeks, but we will grab a glass of whiskey and do a Friday Night Live again soon. If Depp wins even one of 3 claims, does he win the entire case? I mean, I guess that becomes a matter of perspective and possibly semantics. I think if he wins any one claim, it's saying that she defamed him in some way, and that is a win for him. Or does he have to win all 3? He doesn't have to win all 3. They can award damages on just one. They can award full damages on just one. Defamation's defamation. Those 3 are defamation for the op-ed in print, defamation for the op-ed online, and defamation for the op-ed reshared through the quote tweet. So they could find just 1 or 2. I think it would be more consistent to not find the print version and find the 2 counts on the digital version. I think that would be most consistent. So that's what I think. Can we all go watch Kenobi or Stranger Things 4 now? Yes. I have not gotten to see Kenobi yet. My family and I are in the middle of trying to determine who's the best Spider-Man. So we've been watching all the Spider-Man movies, and I have not gotten to participate as much as I would like. That is after I get a margarita, part of my evening. I also probably need a nap like Runkle. Can Amber Heard and Johnny Depp still reach a settlement? No. I mean, theoretically, yes, but there's no way with these 2 parties. There's no way. They're locked at horns. The jury has it. They've spent millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and alpacas to litigate this case. There's no way. Amber Heard got called Amber Turd in public in court. There's no way this case is settling. There's nothing to settle for. Apologize and say you defamed me. Neither one's going to do that. Deanna said, I think that Amber Heard's team could have actually leaned into her mental illness as defined by Dr. Curry rather than shying away from it and demonizing mental illness. People with mental illness are statistically more vulnerable to violence. That could have been client-led. I also think they could have leaned into, and she believed these things. She believed this is her truth. This is what happened to her. So I'm sorry she's not a perfect enough victim. Ben Rottenborn really tried to get there. No victim's perfect. I thought the beginning of his closing was quite good. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. Too many pictures, not enough pictures. If there are pictures, they're fake. If you tell your friends, if you don't tell your friends. I thought it was a very good argument. I don't know what the jury will think based on the way she testified in court. If she had testified in a smaller way, if she had testified without saying, oh, it's not just one clump of hair, it was hair all over the apartment thing or hair all over the penthouses, things like that. If that had been more consistent with the photos, I think this would be a different case. And I think that argument from Rottenborn works to a win in that circumstance. I just think her testimony is inconsistent, but this is a double-edged sword, right? If she talks about it too much and says, hey, I do believe these things, and it could also then be career ending for her. And I worry that I think there's those considerations too of what do I want in public, and I'm not willing to take that legal avenue is not an avenue I'm willing to take. Is now a good time to share with the law nerds the news of our lords and saviors, Ralph Macchio, Billy Zobra, and the creators of Cobra Kai? I have no idea what that's related to, but if it's not a spoiler, I mean, sure. Please answer so I don't go nuts. Can they find the defamation from misleading info? Yeah, the defamation by implication. As I feel the two statements are misleading at best, love you, the defamation by implication, but they have to find it's not true. So they have to say it's misled in a way that it's not true. And we read that. And if you want a breakdown of those, of the jury instructions, again, they are on last week's episode of the podcast on the channel. So it would be, I think it's episode 142 of the podcast of like what comes next. That's where I break that down. So thank you for the question. Is there a possibility that the jury can go up to 2 weeks? Yeah, yes, Jared, they get to take their time. They could do whatever. Let's see. Nisha said, why do you think they didn't hammer on them doing drugs and drinking with Depp, despite he was abusive while using, and they wanted him sober? I don't know. I mean, they brought up his use and his addiction so much, but I wonder if they realized that was feeling really icky. They made such a big deal out of it, but they did not hammer on it in closing. I know you're focused on this case, but when you get a chance, the Markle case here in Florida has gotten spicy. Ooh, I will go check. I only did the first breakdown and I will go look. Sam's attorney pleaded a couple of times to be let go, and Megan's side now has 20 heavy hitters. Oh dear. I will go look. It's been a while, but yes, that's been on the list. Question, once Team Amber got into time trouble, is that just bad lawyering? I don't think it's bad lawyering. I think it's bad time management. And I am not one to criticize poor time management at all. It's time management. But some of that, again, Runkle has softened me to this. Some of that also might be client led. And we don't know. And some of that could be client directed, and we just don't know. During the pretrial jury selection, did the jurors know the parties were celebrities? Yes. And yes, they did. They would have been asked. And again, we didn't see the voir dire process. So just so I'm clear, we didn't see the voir dire process, but they read the complaint. This is the case of, Jonathan C. Depp versus Amber Laura Heard. They would have heard their names, and they would have been voir dired about their knowledge of Johnny Depp. If they'd followed this case, they would have been asked all about that to screen for bias. So what's the next case? We'll see. Probably Jen Shaw for me, but I've got to swoop back all of the other stuff that's been happening. Stuff has been happening in the Girardi cases and others. So I've got to go back and swoop through all the law that's happened in the essentially 6 weeks while we've been doing this. So I talked about what I thought for verdict. Janice said, it's been so awesome hanging out with you for weeks. I hollered out loud when you started talking about planners and the llama connection. Planner addicts unite. I feel so seen. Well, I got, y'all clocked my happy planner dashboard earlier. So, and these back here are pens sorted in rainbow order. So, nerd. Can they award $0 to the winning side? Yes, they can. They can find no damages. They can find there's defamation and no damages. What's the latest time it will come in tonight? Well, the jurors get to deliberate until they choose to go home. I think they'll notify the media when the jurors go home for the night. It depends how close they are. If they're not close to a verdict at all, I imagine they'll probably go home around 6:30. So, can WB sue JD's lawyers for the Aquaman spoilers? Oh, they totally should. it's covered by litigation privilege. So I was being facetious. Can the jury ask for documents other than what's put on the laptop? They get all the evidence. So they get the laptop for the digital audiovisual, and then they get a stack of all the documents. They've gotten all of it. Can they ask for anything outside of that? No. They can ask for office supplies, but no. From your experience, how to go about being properly diagnosed for ADHD in adulthood? What type of doctor? Generally psychiatrists run the testing. But you can also talk to your doctor and say, I would like to be screened, and go get screened. So start with your doctor, but generally psychiatrists do that type of screening. So Timothy said, my dog stepped on a bee. I now fear most being on court TV, though not my own fault of my own, to be roasted by the internet. Herds experts now regretting their $500 an hour side jobs. They could use some mega muffins. They could love the sportsmanship at the end. I agree. The lawyers, the experts, I did not love Herds experts, but the lawyers there should be a bit of camaraderie. There should be. Thanks for your great commentary. You're welcome. Keeping me company for the past few weeks working from home. Love from Ireland. Thank you, Georgia. I'm going to do a few more questions. If I didn't get to something, I apologize. I'm going to try to do kind of a speed run. And because then I have got to go. Can we get deliberation tomorrow or on the weekend? No, we cannot. They will resume Tuesday if they don't come to a verdict. Do you think Vasquez keeps bringing up the TRO date to suggest a verdict today would be poetic justice? Yes, I do. I do think they kept suggesting it for that. Because when does that ever happen? That never happens. When does it ever happen that you're closing the same date that something critical in your case happened? The probability of that is so astronomical. I'm not surprised. Have you ever had a client pass out? No. Depp looks pale. He did look a bit pale, but no, and for me, not clients, victims, witnesses, but no, I've never been in court when a defendant's passed out. Her makeup now looks more like a bruise than the pictures. I hope a verdict, they make her pay what she pledged. We'll see what they do. I mean, we will. The waiting is the hard part, isn't it? Amber Heard taking notes was, I think, stress. Where were the texts addressing the incoming and not the outgoing? I don't know why they didn't address it. Sure don't. I hope that the jury, Michelle, hi. I hope that the jury doesn't consider, and it's probable that they will, because Amber Heard introduced the court of public opinion into this trial so heavily with the hashtags and the hashtag data and how much of the hashtags were justice for Johnny Depp, and her saying how much backlash she's getting online. But I hope that they don't. I hope that they look at the law and come to a decision that they feel comfortable with, and that they not just comfortable with, convicted of. I hope they feel that what they are doing is justice, and that is a heavy, heavy weight. Do Amber and Johnny stay around the area just in case, or do they go back home? I think they have probably gone back home. I don't think they'll be there for the verdict. Can you expand on how the First Amendment would even apply to this case? It's speech. I thought it was to protect your freedoms from government retaliation, not personal issues. It's still your freedom of speech. So they're saying, look, freedom of speech is pretty broad, and a lot of our society is set up because freedom of speech is really heavily protected. But defamation is not free speech. Defamation is improper. And so the laws of defamation don't violate the First Amendment because defamation is not protected. Hopefully that helps. Could it be that the stories had to coincide with actual arguments that happened to be on those dates? I mean, yes. It's just an interesting argument. Why wouldn't they want Johnny Depp and Amber Heard in the courtroom to hear the verdict? Optics, PR, circus, general circus outside the court. I mean, that's the environment that was described by Runkle is maybe why you don't want your client to be subjected to that any longer, especially for Team Heard. You just don't want that. Thank you for the safe space for survivors of abuse. You're welcome. Thank you. And you're welcome. And thank you. That's what we do here. We are the Law Nerd community. That is what we do. Law and Crime put up a jury counter. Well played, Law and Crime. Well played. Did she speak out, and did she experience society's wrath? I think both of those things happened. But what she spoke out about was false. So how can the jury instructions be followed? Well, if what she spoke about was false, then the speaking out and facing the wrath is premised on a falsity, and therefore they can find defamation. That's where we're at. Can I get a shout out to my husband, Caleb? Trigger Lynn's husband, Caleb. Yep. He's a journalism major. Can you explain what TMZ tried to do to block Morgan Knight? They filed a motion. I broke it down. When did I break down that motion? I broke it down the day it broke. So it would have been today, Friday. It would have been Wednesday in the afternoon stream. I broke it down at the end of that stream. It's timestamped. They filed a motion to try to either quash the subpoena or intervene, and it was denied. Speaking of Jen Shaw, do you plan on being in the courtroom for trial in July? I need to make sure the trial doesn't get moved. It is my goal. I need to look at how long they're estimating for the trial, because I could end up being in New York for quite a while. But yes, it is my goal. I'm not going to be dressed as cute as Chanley Painter from court. It's not. I am not going to have my girl in the green dress moment. That's not going to happen. Also, it's not streaming. That's not going to happen. Shout out to my beautiful wife, Jane, on her 4th decade of life today. Happy birthday, Jane. Can she really falsely accuse him publicly of those serious crimes like sexual abuse with the bottle without proof or evidence and then walk away without consequences? If the jury believes it's true, then yes. Then there wouldn't be consequences because it would be true, I guess. So that. All right. Law nerds, thank you. Do they shred jurors' notes when the verdict is in? Patty, I don't know what this jurisdiction will do. This jurisdiction will decide, but I don't know. Thank you for all the compliments on my hair. I was on TV this morning. So it got curled to do that appearance. Jury going home. What could this mean? If there's a note that the jury's going home, it means they don't have a verdict. So if the jurors are going home, they're done for the day. They're just fucking done. They've probably taken their initial, let me go to the social medias, because law nerds, I trust all of you. Though I've been trolled enough. I trust all of you, but I'm going to go look for, I'm going to go look to see if there are any official statements. And I'm not seeing any yet, but if the jury is going home, then they don't come back till Tuesday. So if the jury's going home now, then they don't come back to Tuesday. I'm going to go see if any of the court correspondents are tweeting about it. But Chanley Painter, Depp v. Heard, jurors are going home for the weekend. They will be brought back into the courtroom to be dismissed for the weekend. So the jurors will come back into the courtroom and the judge will say, don't discuss the case, don't talk to anyone, don't, don't whatever. And then they're going home. So that's it. The jurors are going home. Why not Monday? It is a holiday Monday. So it is 5:15 in the East. That means that they are not able to come to a quick verdict and they are done. So jury watch is over. Yep. Chanley Painter said it too. So yes, we are there. So the jurors are going to come in. That's perfect. Anyone know if Emily answered my question? I answered a bunch of questions. I have no idea. Maybe. Does anyone know, does the jury know they have a 1-year restriction? The judge told them when they did the closing jury instructions after closing, before they were dismissed to, when they were dismissed to deliberate. So with that, the jury will be back on Tuesday. I will be back for coffee and cursey words on Tuesday. If the jury has a verdict early in the morning on Tuesday, if they come back at 9 a.m., though, we start coffee and cursey words at 11. If I need to bump coffee and cursey words earlier, I will. Be part of the text crew, subscribe here and sign up. And I will remind you, because some of you have just come in. I'm sure. I'm just going to remind you that I added things to commemorate our time together over on the Law Nerd Shop at lawnerdshop.com. We have a few new things. So y'all have been amazing. This has been amazing. My designer is amazing. I'm happy to bring them to you. I love these water bottles. They keep things cold. So though I love a straw, we still have a giveaway that I need to do on these cups. There's so much that needs to be done. Everything has just stopped. But there is so much that needs to be done. So with that, any news on the Triller case? It's one of the first things I'm going to be looking at. What channel and time want to watch you on TV? I was on Good Morning New York this morning. I tweeted about it. It was early. So the jury can't discuss the case till 2023? No. The jury can seek out the media. The media can't seek out the jury. Their information is sealed, so they don't know their names. They can't go find them. If they want to talk, they can. So if they want to talk, they can. With that, do the YouTube things. I don't know where we're at.
Could you say that again? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Don't get brazen with me, Siri. I said do the YouTubey things. That's all. Siri's getting sassy. I just said do the YouTubey things. Look at us go. Look at us go. We're going. So with that, the jury's going home. Go enjoy your Friday. Go get a margarita and some tacos. That's what I'm going to go do. Thank you for being here. Tuesday, we will resume. If you want to follow me on social at the Emily D. Baker. Lawners, you're amazing. Mods, you're amazing. Will you get to 600K before the verdict? I don't know, Thomas. Maybe. I don't know. We are at 572,000. So possibly. All right. And with that, you guys, I'm going to sign off too. Thank you so much. May Elaine file a lawsuit against Amber Heard? No. That's not going to happen. But on Tuesday, we'll resume with Verdict Watch. We will probably talk about some of the things that didn't come into evidence and then do a recap of the current cases we've been following. That's the plan, unless something goes sideways over the weekend. If like people's PR teams start getting sassy, I'm going to be talking about it tonight on social media, but I will not be streaming again this evening. So with that, thank you for being here. It has really been just an absolute pleasure covering this case with you, going through this trial with you, having the jaw-dropping moments with you. Thank you for being a part of this community. Truly, truly, this community is the greatest place to spend time on the internet. The way that you love and respect each other, listen to each other's voices, and have come from all over the world to talk about this case without name calling, without the besmirchingness that happens on the internet is really inspiring. And I think that as a group of law nerds, we are elevating the way conversations are had. And that is a really powerful thing. Thank you for being you. Thank you for letting me be me. And I will see all of you around the interwebs over the weekend and then back here live on Tuesday. Have a good one. Have a great Memorial Day. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.